Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Margaret. Welcome to Yellow Cottage Tales, breaking the case with Jen Coffindaffer, and of course, It's a Crime with Margaret McLean. Today we're hopefully going to conclude our coverage of the Brian Walshe trial, but who knows? We're on verdict watch. Do you think there'll be a verdict this morning?
I do.
Margaret?
I do. Okay. I think either this morning or this afternoon. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they did have a lot of evidence to look at, so I'm not surprised that they broke at 4:30 last week. And don't forget, 4. When was it? I think it was 4. In Massachusetts, I've never seen a jury deliberate until 7 o'clock at night. So the court staff likes to go home.
Right.
But yeah, the news, Kevin, the news. If I'm sounding and looking tired, I was up last night on X, looking at the news. It was terrible. I don't know what you want to start with this morning, but
well, I have a video clip.
Which one?
You know what? I have an incredible clip. Let me actually go to this screen. This is from my hero in Bondi, Australia yesterday.
That's a tragedy.
And
my God.
But it does show there are heroes in the world. And this looks like an older gentleman too. Let me pull this video up. Who stepped in on these shooters I'm not sure the final death toll, but they killed an awful lot of people. They were attacking a Jewish synagogue or Jewish area celebrating Hanukkah.
Yeah. I mean, the first day of Hanukkah,
this is the vision.
People should be celebrating.
Let me pull this back a little bit while this guy in the white shirt tackles a gunman. And this is the father, the son of the gunman is up on the bridge firing. The woman ran over there too. I just noticed that.
Officer, not a paramedic, but a civilian who has rushed the gunman from behind, seized his weapon, turned the weapon on him.
And now if you're this hero, you have to worry about getting shot by the police when they show up.
Not only do that,
so he puts the gun down.
The presence of mind not to open fire in that situation. And now he is no doubt calling for backup, getting this man.
He's an older guy.
I know.
There is no chance he can get away, but we do believe.
And there's the son
vision you
of
are
the gunman
there is
firing
the
from the bridge.
A second gunman, Tom, is that your understanding? That is a second gunman up on the bridge, now trying to protect the other gunman who has just been stripped of his weapon.
And these are apparently Islamic terrorists.
Yes.
One of the guns.
All right, let's pull that off, and I'll go to the breaking. So, I mean, this is the worst attack since the attack in October from a couple of years ago in Israel for the concert. So just a terrible attack. And this is what rhetoric leads to,
Oh my God. It's my heart breaks for those people. And watching last night videos of everybody scrambling and running off the beach. It's horrible. I'm just, and the other thing about now, I also read that Australia, the government knew that there was a wave of anti-Semitism going on in Australia, and also that they're criticizing the government for not doing enough, and these terrorists were on their watch list. That's my understanding.
These particular terrorists. Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's my understanding, but I'd like to read more on that before I comment. So good morning, Jen.
Morning.
Hey,
How are y'all?
Well, we're
doing just going over the news.
Yeah, it's crazy about all the developments in the news since we last talked.
Oh, it's been crazy. I worked till midnight last night. It's just crazy.
Me too.
Rob Reiner and his wife were stabbed too.
Yeah. So Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, now People they're reporting that they were stabbed by their son, who has drug addiction issues, who had them for a long time and lived with them, I guess.
And to be careful, no one else is reporting that, so we don't know.
No, People is reporting it. People is.
People Magazine is, right. That's the only one at this point. Yep.
Right, but so that's why I said People was, but.
Yeah, it's source related. I saw him being interviewed last night by the police, which I thought was very interesting. He wasn't cuffed. Police have said they have no suspects in custody or anything along that line. So, but it is very interesting. I mean, People was very strident about that. And actually there's a lot of other outlets too but I don't know if it's based on people reporting it. That's what ends up
Right.
happening. It
Yeah,
proliferates.
TMZ also claims to have the inside information on it as well. And I'm sure those news outlets are very connected to the LAPD, but look what happened in Providence. They got the wrong guy twice. And the second guy, he went out, everybody thought it was him, and I tweeted it and then took it down.
Yeah, and we'll get to Providence in a
Yeah,
second. I
yeah,
just wanted to, for
never know.
those younger in the audience, Rob Reiner was first made famous on the sitcom called All in the Family. He played the son-in-law, Meathead. But he's also then went on to become a famous director, and he's done some of your favorite movies, I guarantee it, because I know he has mine, such as Stand By Me, and one of my favorite movies, and probably Margaret's too, since she's a lawyer, A Few Good Men, which is a movie I can't stop watching. I've watched it 1,000 times. So, just a tragic loss, definitely. Even if you may have had different political opinions of Rob, he was very active politically, and his father, of course, was Carl Reiner, a famous writer and comedian from the 60s, writing on sitcoms in the 60s, another very famous man. So let's go on to the Brown shootings. What's the latest on that, Margaret?
Well, the latest. So speaking of that, I think last Saturday, I went to Providence and we stayed right across from Brown University. Like we were right there, literally a week before. So it's very shocking. But it blows my mind is right away, they had somebody in custody and it was reported nationally, oh, they got the guy. But then that guy was released. So then later on, yesterday, they reported that they had a person of interest, and then that person's picture went out online all over the place that, he was, he had a long history of mental health issues. So then they let him go. And they had a press conference saying that even though Providence should not be worried, the shooter is still at large. Now, I don't understand why they would say publicly that people in Providence should not be worried about a shooter who is at large, but they're under a lot of criticism for a botched investigation. And, since we follow trials, when they do get the right person, that's going to come up at trial. Well, you got the wrong guy this time, then you got the wrong guy this time.
Yeah,
How do
that's
we
a
know
really
we
good
have
point.
the right? Yeah. So I'd like to hear what Jen thinks about
Yeah,
that.
Jen, what do you think?
Well, I tell you, my hot take is that mayor is trying to run this investigation. It is so obvious that he is the man in charge. He shouldn't be doing the pressers. I mean, always the mayor, makes a small presentation, about his concern for citizenry, but he is the one that's giving out all the law enforcement information. And then when they have the chief of police on, unfortunately, he's rather confused at the podium. It's clear the mayor wants to keep him off the podium. I've watched every single presser, obviously been reporting on this for News Nation, and it's really tough to watch. It seems to me they also announced yesterday, yeah, we need to get the Ring camera. That should have been item one. Get all the Ring camera. This is, Brown sits in a residential type area, and then also the traffic cams. There's extensive traffic cams there. It's only a 400-man police department, and they said they only had 50 people working on it. That's just not enough. They're enlisting the FBI to help. The tips are going through the FBI's tip line. But this needs to be one of those situations where either the state or the FBI comes in that has extensive manhunt and investigative experience, and they're leading it behind the scenes. That's what needs to happen. This is one of the worst situations I've seen. Yes, you're going to go down some rabbit trails because you have to follow tips, and that the reason that person was arrested was off of a tip that came in from the tip line. And then further, at least according to reports, geo-fencing showed he was there in that area. So it was a combination of those two items. It never really made sense that somebody would have come all the way to Brown that wasn't associated Brown and know that building would be open and go there at 3:00 on a Saturday, 4:00 on a Saturday. So I know this is a long take, but it's really concerning, and they need to get, as I wrote today on Twitter, they need to get Smiley back in his office, and the gift of gab is not helping in this situation, and not announce things before they have rock solid information, because now that guy's picture splashed all over the media, and so's another guy. They had 2 photos that they put out there. It's just a mess.
I
I
have a
agree.
question for both of you, but I will have plenty of time to get to it, so I'm going to hold on to the one for Margaret. But just Jen, if you could talk about geofencing, you mentioned that, and also go into if you had, as part of your FBI training, if any preparation for situations like this. But tell us how geofencing works in this rapid response kind of situation.
So essentially, I'll just make it very easy. What they can do is they can look and see what phones pinged from a particular location at a particular time. And so, that's essentially what it does. So they're able to figure out what phones at least are active in a particular location. Totally amazing. I mean, I expected that to be one of the first things they did, is look at that. And remember, some of these shooters don't go with their phones, Brian Koberger. Not everybody is going to bring their phone, but you at least need to track that down. Plus, it'll tell you who was there that could have been the potential victim. Because we don't really know who the target was, if it was a specific target, but all this lines out to me to be very specific to Brown, to that department, to somebody in there.
What do you think about the fact that they left the doors open? Normally you use a key card to get into those buildings, but because it was final exams, somebody could just get in.
Well, the lack of security at Brown, they need a whole new security director. They don't even have cameras interiorly in their buildings. That's why there's no other footage. It's shocking in this day and age, with all the shootings that are happening, that Brown, a leading institution that has more money than a state institution, cannot have appropriate cameras, and that's a big problem with running this investigation. They don't have camera footage.
Would that be lack of money, or could there also be privacy concerns where they didn't want to send the wrong message by having too many cameras on campus?
Well, these campuses, many of them are extremely liberal in their views regarding that, right? The privacy
Right.
balanced with being able to conduct an investigation. But typically these locations have changed all of that. Princeton, as a matter of fact, I was just looking this up, has an extensive cameras everywhere now that they've put in place. And you would think Brown would follow suit. I mean, look at all of the, what's happened at Harvard and so on. So if that's the reasoning, just because they're worried about privacy, look, you just advertise it, you let everybody know there's cameras, and they're for this very reason you need cameras.
And so you think that's why they don't have cameras, because of personal rights and privacy, that Brown is a very liberal institution?
I don't know, but I bet that plays into it to some degree. I know that building was built in, I believe, 1965. It's a 7-story building, I think 22,000. I'm just all going off of my memory here. 22,000 square feet. It's huge. And I know it was updated recently, and so is very new and all the latest and greatest, but you're still talking about a 1965 building. So I don't know in terms of, the difficulty of doing this. I don't think it'd be that difficult, but that was what was offered by the Attorney General as a reasoning for why they don't have cameras. Now, I'm not offering it. They were offering it, which I thought was extremely lame.
Margaret, I have a question for you. We're always trying to get, at least I know I am. I'm very curious about how that behind the scenes look to thing. And you used to be a prosecutor in Lawrence, and you may not have had an active shooter situation like this. But at what point do the prosecutors start showing up and getting involved? Do they wait until all the dust is settled? How is your approach? What did you see in your time in Lawrence?
Oh, the prosecutors get involved very early on in these types of things, and they're sometimes they're there to even advise the police on the law, like search and seizure and things like that. But yeah, especially in a big case like this, they are behind the scenes, and homicide investigators, actually you see it in some of the movies, right? Homicide investigators will go to the scene of a murder, they will show up right on scene. So they're assigned very early on, and they're involved very early on. But they have to be careful. They don't want to be witnesses either.
Right.
But
That's fascinating. That's just, we always like to, because most of us, our understanding comes from television or a movie. So with you and Jen, we have the benefit of getting firsthand some of these experiences. Did you have any similar experiences in your time in Lawrence where you had to really be on the scene for an act of crime?
And no, nothing like this, like an active shooter. No. And remember, I was younger at the time. I wasn't one of the big homicide detective or homicide prosecutors either. So I left the DA's office to practice law in Boston. But it's crazy. And I'm what I'd like to see though is someone obviously leaked information to the press, and I'm sure they're looking into that, like who leaked the information, like the guy's picture, and that's, to me, that is what needs to be investigated. And that person who leaked the information, especially on the second person of interest, should be held accountable for that. They're going to get sued.
Well, I don't think they can get sued for being detained because it was reasonable until I believe they ran ballistics and did the polygraph. So that made a lot of, oops, sorry.
Well, but what about leaking the information? I mean, I think, and making it, so now it's online, and it's a, a national smear, because I was reading the guy had a long history of mental health issues, and that's privacy information. That's private information.
Oh,
So,
sorry, I interrupted.
well, that's okay.
Reverberating back and forth, but no, I agree, because they can't. He's not going to be able to sue because he was detained.
No, but the smear campaign,
the leaking of all that information that ran wild. I didn't post his picture. I felt very uncomfortable with everything. Last night when they had me on News Nation, I specifically said, listen, they're not confident. That's what this tells me. And if you watched the press conference, the police chief, who is not well spoken and was confused, he said that they had somebody in custody. That was the word he used. And then one of his underlings, leaned over and whispered in his ear, but everybody could hear it, and said, it's not in custody, it's just detained, or words to that. Don't use the word custody.
I see.
And all of us watching were just, I've posted twice on it on Twitter. It's unbelievable that they would make these dog and pony shows when they really aren't confident in who they have. And they need to stop that. There's a big difference between being somewhat transparent and coming forward with every single investigative step. That's why the Bureau doesn't say anything. Exactly.
Yeah, they're smart.
The reasons. Keep your mouth shut and wait until you have definite information. I love how LAPD is handling Reiners. Is it likely going to come out, apparently that, the son, that's obviously there's a lot of information leaning toward that, but they're not coming out and saying that. And that's because they are seasoned detectives and know the trappings of that.
Especially they have experience with LA too. I mean, TMZ is right there, and it's all Hollywood gossip. And so they are keeping quiet, keeping the lid on it. But there was something I was going to ask you, Jen, about the investigation, and then I switched to Rob Reiner. Oh, I know what it was. So another thing I noticed early on, which is the president of Brown University, I forget her name, but she was asked early on in the one of the press conferences yesterday, what was happening in the classroom where the shooter was. And, you'd think she'd know at that point, yeah, they were taking a final exam or they had a class, but she answered, I don't know. And then she was criticized for that, as if she had no idea what was going on. What's your take on that?
Oh, I watched that presser too. They made her look ridiculous, or she made herself look ridiculous. But to her deference, she was flying. She literally was on a flight when all this broke, and she got off the flight when she landed and turned around and came back. So, but still, all of us can get internet on the plane. There's no excuse for not knowing when you're the president of a university and 2 people have been murdered in your classroom and 9 others injured. There's no reason not to be on top of it, or don't go to the podium. It
Yeah.
really seems so political to me. I mean, they had the governor, they had mostly the mayor. The mayor is the one handling all the law enforcement questions. And it really seems like a political campaign more than knowledgeable information that they're giving to the public. Honestly, this is probably the worst one I've ever covered.
Yeah.
This
And that's
actually
gonna
goes
ruin-
back to when I first got into true crime. So when I was in 1976, when I was 10 years old, there was a kid named Andy Puglisi who went missing, and they brought in the National Guard, and I remember helicopters overhead, and there was a kid from the projects, and he went missing from a state pool. This was about a mile from where I lived, and his body was never found. No one ever learned what happened to him. And of course, a childhood friend of his in the projects went on to be a documentary maker, and she made a documentary that's on HBO called "Have You Seen Andy?" And I actually, the night John O'Keefe died, I had a bad case of COVID, and I had a high temperature and I couldn't sleep, so I found that documentary, and that's how I kind of got into true crime. But in that case, you see this happening all the way back then too. Police, very strangely, about 5 days after the search was underway, suddenly we woke up the next morning and the newspaper headlines was that police had reason to believe that Andy Puglisi was with family or friends. And that was it. And it ended. Everybody just assumed that Andy was safe somewhere. And all the parents had been keeping their kids in, and all that panic stopped. But it turned out to be none of it was true. The police just made it up. And we've seen this go on. Really, there's just an enormous, I think we saw this in Idaho too, with what eventually became the Kohlberger case, the Moscow, Idaho, where there's a tendency on politicians or in law enforcement, in certain people, to want to, I guess, avoid the sense of they're not being in control. They would say they're trying to make sure the public doesn't panic, but the public doesn't generally panic. I think it's more about their sense of wanting to convey that they're in control, but they end up giving bad information to the public, and especially where there may still be a danger out there. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah. I think you're good. You have a good point.
Well, and last night they said, I mean, really, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They said, we have somebody in custody, changed it to detention after the ear whisper, and then said, so we're releasing everybody. There's no more stay in place. Shelter in place. We're lifting that. And then last night they said, oh, we didn't lift the shelter in place because we got somebody. We lifted it because it's okay if you're out on the street, because law enforcement doesn't need you to be inside for them to do their work anymore. And I thought, oh my gosh, please don't open your mouth anymore. The public's confidence is going to be, it's shaken. I can't imagine it would be anything less than shaken. I'm so glad that they shut down Brown, so there's going to be no students there. But to say Providence is safe with a mass murderer still out is insane.
And what if something does happen, right? Like what if he starts shooting again? Then they're going to look even worse.
Yeah, let's really hope it doesn't. It doesn't happen, that the guy lays low, like Brian Koberger did, right? He laid low after the murders, even though, as Kevin mentioned, I'll never forget that police chief Fry coming out and saying, yeah, everybody's safe. We're good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's targeted, when we now know it wasn't really targeted. I mean, it was to the degree, I think Maddie to me was the target, but this guy was a potential serial killer. Right. That could have targeted again. So I think it's just the message. It's better not to release anything or do it in writing, but in other words, release a written presser to keep people up to speed if that's what you want to do as a political leader. But his mixed messaging and he's a mess right now, in my opinion.
And his political career has ended. At this point, it's got. I think it's over for him, the mayor.
friend of the channel, Rhonda Jones, who is someone I had the pleasure of meeting in Boston later in the summer. And she is all the way from Australia. She's saying, hi, I'm from Australia as well. And we're devastated with what happened in Bondi. How does a person get to the point of murdering innocent people? So just want to say hi to Rhonda because she is a great friend of the channel.
Yeah.
And
I'm
also
sorry, Rhonda,
thank
yeah.
Court Dog Daniel for his donation. Thank you, Dog.
Aw. I thought Dog the Bounty Hunter might be on here. He sometimes on my channel. He just flies in. It's so funny. Flies in and flies out. But glad we have another dog here.
Yeah.
Yeah, all this news is really it's really such a sad state of affairs. And there was a shooting also in Kentucky, I believe, the day before the shooting at Brown, and then to have that shooting, as you all were speaking of, in Australia, and then Rob Reiner died. It's been unbelievable in terms of breaking news.
And
Yeah.
let me ask you, Jen, is we're approaching the holidays, and of course Hanukkah started last evening. So do you feel statistically crime goes up, right, during the holidays?
Yes, it does. Especially, people who take their own lives, that goes way up. Crime goes way up. And I think it's just part of the new year, a lot of depression. Some people have no one, people who are, addicted to drugs. Obviously, that changes their mentality and causes lack of, the inhibition. So, yes, it does. And we can always expect to see more crime, but these targeted events are just horrible. Meaning, I'm now referring to the Australia, and I know you guys already talked on it, but I can't imagine being Jewish, of the Jewish faith. I really can't. I would never feel comfortable gathering with other Jewish people in any public forum. They are so targeted.
Yeah.
And I feel terrible for my Jewish friends, for people I don't know. I can't imagine being a Jewish person and how they must live their lives. I really can't.
I had where I went to college, the school was about roughly half Jewish. And I have found myself thinking many times how much I miss those kids. I was very lucky to be exposed to a lot of really just interesting and special kids that I became great friends with in school, played basketball every day, went to parties with. And actually one of my friends, the person who got me a job in bartending and started me down that path, he has won like 7 Emmys. He was the one that invented the World Series of Poker, believe it or not.
Wow.
But he was a documentary maker for various sports channels, and another friend also had won an Emmy in a documentary field too on rock music. So I was lucky to be surrounded by some very interesting and talented people, and just good kids.
It's so sad. And Hanukkah's a celebration, like Christmas, and it's just I know my heart goes out to all of the Jewish people and my Jewish friends too, and it's just a tragedy. And again, my dad was a World War II vet, and so we used to talk about it all the time, and it just devastated my dad when there were attacks against Jewish people again and again and again. So, my heart goes out to them.
Margaret, do you have any idea why like when you went to the court, is the court clock set at at a slower time or something? Because I'm noticing here that it's about 5 minutes behind what I have for actual time.
No, that's just the clock. No, there's the court clocks were not officially set at a slower time.
Because in the bars, we always
just that clock.
in the bar industry, there's a tradition for many of our bars to set the clocks 10 minutes fast.
Of course.
Try to help us get people out at the end of the night.
That's
but
funny.
I'm trying to make sure I'm not I see the pendulum moving, so I feel confident that we have a good feed and everything. I've reset
Yeah.
it a couple of times to make sure, but my time is about, and we know the court TV feed is about a minute slower, but this is like 5 minutes off. I just noticed this.
Yeah, and remember, Monday mornings takes a little longer. Jurors are rolling in. People are dealing with traffic because it's always worse on a Monday morning, in my opinion. And the judges, they also get coffee and whatever, donuts and things. And so I just think that the judge is probably in there saying hello, and then I'm sure they'll be out soon, though. And I bet they will reach a verdict. They'll probably reach a verdict right when I have my eye doctor's appointment today. That took me a year to get. It's like between the two appointments, I'm like, I just can't win. So
Well, it feels like lunch is a deadline, so maybe they'll do it before lunch. What do you think, Jen?
I think it's very possible. They were able to deliberate some last week, on Friday. I mentioned that they might even try to go late or, go the next day. But as Margaret said, apparently there in Massachusetts, unlike the federal people who are getting on salary, they don't like to work beyond their set 8-hour shifts or whatever it is. I find all of this so interesting when it comes to state stuff. So anyway, here we are. I think it'll be quick. I think it'll be today.
yeah.
And if it's not, what does that mean, guys?
I don't think you can really say it means anything. I think it just means that they're taking it seriously and going through all the evidence. And there is quite a bit of evidence, the forensic evidence, and they're probably taking it day by day, witness by witness, hacksaw by snips, So, there could be one holdout that says, wait a minute, the Commonwealth hasn't proven its case, or they're debating over first-degree murder and second-degree murder. But I don't necessarily think they're just taking their time. It hasn't been that long, really.
It
So
has.
we'll be here for our audiences all day, and that doesn't mean we won't step away and take our own breaks. But the feed will be going, and you can continue to monitor it and chat, and we'll continue to monitor it, throughout the day, and make sure that the feed is up and going. And we'll be jumping on right after this verdict if there is one.
Yeah. And even if I have my eye appointment, I know how to hook in now from my phone. So I might be all dilated, but I will jump on. But my eye appointment's at 1:15, so it shouldn't be that bad. I don't know.
You need to get a little avatar. See my little avatar?
I know. Yes.
When I didn't have my hair done, I put my avatar on because nobody needs to see my gigantic Chia Pet morning hair.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I should. I haven't made an avatar up yet, but that's a good idea, Jen. Yeah.
Jen, we've actually reached 18 degrees here. It was like 10 degrees earlier this morning. So I don't know what it is where you are, but
I haven't gone outside yet, Kevin. I got up and I looked at all the Twitter feeds again, and then I haven't gone outside. Now I don't want to go outside. Ooh.
Yeah, it is cold.
Good morning, Ronnie. Good morning. Good morning to everybody.
Miserable.
Yeah. I'd rather be with you playing tennis.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit warmer here than 18 degrees, but it's cold here for us. I think where I'm at right now is probably 40, 50 degrees, something like that. It's crazy. It was high mid 70s yesterday, and huge cold front came in the middle of the night.
What's a cold front for you?
When it gets down to 50. It's terribly cold.
When it gets down to what? I mean, like 50?
50. I have to play tennis in that freezing weather tomorrow, 50-degree weather. I'm going to have my earmuffs on. You should see all of us. We show up. You would think we were going to a snowmobile, setting. Instead, it's tennis. We all have our leggings on. We have our Ugg boots.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's so silly, but
that's funny.
I have a friend from the area where you are, Jen, and she says you guys have already had a frost this year.
Ooh.
We did have a frost. I almost lost my hibiscus.
Jeez.
It was terrible. I had to cut it all back. It's back looking fabulous again, but Yeah, that frost really, I should have covered my hibiscus, but it snuck in on us. So we have cold weather. I mean, to frost, it had to have been in the 30s.
Jeez.
It
And you
doesn't.
grew up where it was cold, right?
Oh, I did. And it's funny, even when I lived in Washington, D.C., I got so used to the cold again. It didn't bother me. No issues. But yeah, growing up in Kansas and Nebraska, it was 90 miles from the South Dakota border. That's where our farm is still. That is really cold.
Yeah. Well, it's very cold there. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
18
20s in North Carolina. That's cold.
Cindy, I got that sweatshirt. Cindy's asking where I got that sweatshirt. I think I got it on the official NFL.com kind of website. So that's why it's the most expensive. I don't usually buy sports gear, just something about that. But this new edition, I think it's called Blizzard. It was a Patriot sweatshirt, and it's like a bluish, frosty kind of color. Very comfortable, very high quality. I'm very happy with it. It's way more than I would normally ever have spent on, even when I had money on something like that. But it does seem to have been worth it. So if you're looking for Christmas gifts, I believe it was NFL.com, and it's also called the Rivalry gear. So they have different versions of it. But so, as in they put out a specialized, every year they put out Rivalry gear. It's a special kind of shirt. So it would make a good Christmas gift for the Patriots fan in your family.
Oh, yeah. I need I lost my favorite Patriots top shirt. I was looking for it like for an hour. Yeah, I think I lost it somewhere. So anyway, I got to get a new one as well. Buffalo Bills, all you Buffalo Bill fans out there, you must be happy.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Shout out to my brother in Rochester. It was a good game. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunate result, but we're way ahead of where we ever expected to be this year. So
Yeah.
We'll have to live with it.
Yeah.
How about the big news in NFL football, since we're digressing down the football route, which is kind of fun for me because I love sports. How about Mahomes?
Yeah, I was going to report on that if we got to it. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Huge, that ACL. I mean, he could be out a year.
Yeah. Yep. Quarterback for Kansas City Chiefs, Pat Mahomes, the team desperately struggling to stay in the playoff race yesterday, tore his ACL near the end, and
What a shame.
Go to court.
Here we go.
Continuation of the jury trial in Commonwealth versus Brian Walsh, indictment 2023-0091. Defendant and counsel are present in court. Counsel, if you'd once again identify yourselves for the court and the record, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Greg Connor for the Commonwealth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Ann Yaz for the Commonwealth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Tracy Cusick for the Commonwealth.
Welcome.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. Kelly Porges on behalf of Mr. Walsh.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Larry Tipton for Mr. Walsh.
Good morning to everyone. We had a little delayed start because one of our jurors is absent today, luckily. Is juror number 15, who is an alternate juror. I'll see counsel at the side of the bench.
Why did she say luckily?
Luckily that it was because it was an alternate juror. So the 12 can continue debate, talking about it. Yeah. We're lucky it's not an actual juror. That would have been delayed for a day.
Or
I wonder what happened.
Depending on how sick they are.
And Cindy, I have to update based on what Tom just told me. He is correct. It's not called Blizzard. It's called Nor'easter. So if you're looking for that sweatshirt for your husband or son, it's called Nor'easter.
You mean that's the make? The make is Nor'easter?
It's just the title for this particular edition of gear that they put out. It's a new, they're always putting out new stuff, and it's called Nor'easter. You know what a Nor'easter is, right, Jen? It's like a blizzard that we get up here.
She might not.
No, you just had a Nor'easter here. I'll tell you what happens.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yes. That was when we got that frost. And what happens with me is the water comes up into my yard, ruins my plants because it's brackish. And you can't get in, or we can't get in or out of where we live. The last Nor'easter, which just happened.
So you must get that during the hurricane season too, right?
Well, oh yes, hurricane season, that's also a big issue. But nor'easters have been really hard on us in the community where I live.
Mm.
The hurricanes are less frequent, and we get a nor'easter about once a year. So, for instance, if it gets up to the pool, my pool turns black, and I have to pump all that water out, which takes forever to get it all out because the soot lines the bottom. I know these are first world problems, but it's a pain.
Okay, here we go.
He's looking pretty bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, considering.
Yeah, considering he might be going to. Yeah, I'm shocked. Yeah. Well, you know what? He knows he's cooked, and I guess if you know you're cooked, it's just like he's probably thrown his hands up and he doesn't care. I don't know. He's weird. Remember, he's an odd duck.
Does he know though? I mean, do you ever know? I mean, don't you hold out hope that there's at least for a hung jury here?
I don't think he has much hope of that. I don't know. Maybe, Kevin, maybe.
Certainly,
just-
many of us got the Karen Reed verdict wrong, so we have to be.
Well,
Cautious.
true. That's true, but that was different. That's apples and oranges, really, I think.
I agree. I don't think
All rise.
nullification here.
And when we come back, maybe you guys can remember some experiences during your career when we had shock verdicts in trials that you were
Oh
involved
God, yeah. I mean,
Give the attendance and shall be heard. That's like the Commonwealth. Maybe seated. What is this session?
yeah, he was smiling when he got arrested.
Jurors, I'll start today. Hope you all had a nice weekend. We'll start today, as we have every morning of this trial, with the 4 questions. Jurors, were you able to comply with my order that you not speak to anyone about this case? Yes. Were you able to comply with my order that you not do any research about this case? Yes. Be able to comply with my order that you not go on social media or any news media? Yes. And do you all still have open minds? Yes. Jurors, you may have noticed that we were delayed in starting today, and juror number 15, who is an alternate juror, is not here today for purely personal reasons. And it has nothing to do with this case and shouldn't impact your day in any way. But I didn't want to not make mention of the fact that juror number 15 isn't here, because then you might be wondering, purely personal, nothing related to this case. All right? So with that, jurors, I'll send you back to your deliberations. Thank you very much.
Jurors exiting, all rise. Please bring your notebooks with you. Watch your step. Follow me, please.
Heartstar mentions the Karen Swift verdict last year. Is that a case that you guys are familiar with? So apparently that was a shocking verdict.
Which one?
Karen Swift.
I'm not familiar with that case.
I'm not either.
I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, me too.
Just remind you of the 10-minute rule. Always be within 10 minutes of the courthouse. Thank you.
All rise.
Well, I wonder if they'll come back with any questions today as we're waiting.
So, Margaret, in the times and the cases you were involved with, did you have any shocking verdicts where you really just did not get the result that you were very confident in?
All the time. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really sometimes hard to predict what a jury will do. There were times when I thought I thought everything went in perfectly, all the evidence, and I nailed it in closing arguments, all that. And then, to my surprise, it was a not guilty. Or it could go the other way, where I thought, oh, God, this jury is not going to convict. Oh, man, I don't know. And guess what? They came back, and it was a guilty verdict. So you just really never know. You never know what a jury's going to do, how they're thinking. I mean, sometimes I would get a feel for a jury, but still, you never know. So David Swift, her husband, killed his wife Karen. Evidence was overwhelming, but he was found not guilty. Yeah, I'll have to look that up as well. What state was that in?
I'm looking it up right now. It was clear back in 2011. 44-year-old woman, David Swift, was the husband who was the person that they charged. But it went cold forever until 2022 when David was finally arrested.
Juror number 15, who is an alternate.
Okay, I'll just turn the volume off on that. And again, just if we get back to when they come back to any court issues, people remind me to turn the volume back up.
Yeah. We will.
We need your help. We need your help. This is a group production here. Everybody's in on it.
Yes, and I appreciate everybody's help in the beginning of the trial when I was doing my first stream. That was great. Now I can do it. I'm an old pro.
It looks like she filed for divorce. I guess the mom was spending a lot of time away from home, blah, blah. But it is an interesting case because obviously nobody has been held accountable for the murder. I always think, of course, of the famous ones.
Yeah, me too. So they didn't retry him? It was, it was a not guilty. Okay, so it wasn't a hung jury. It was actually a not guilty. All right. Yeah. Gosh.
I don't know anything about that case to
I don't
even
either.
comment.
I'm
There
scrolling
was
through ABC News to see if there's any other headlines of interest. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say that it is interesting that, or one of the cases just last year, I think it was, and I can't remember the man's name, but basically he starved his kid to death.
Oh.
I was shocked that he was not found guilty. I covered that case pretty extensively. Oh my gosh. And he was not found guilty. I do not understand why he was not found guilty, but he wasn't. I don't know if anybody in chat remembers that case. I can look it up, but anything to do with child abuse, those are the cases to cover.
I don't know if you guys have been following this at all. So there is this from the world of interesting science, the comet known as 31/Atlas, which is just the third known comet that has visited us from outside of the solar system. And I know that controversial Harvard astronomer Harvey, I forget his first name, Loeb, believes that this could possibly be a spaceship, essentially. Something that was sent. It had some unusual, unusual qualities about it. Have you guys followed this about? So it's been slowly it's about to make its closest pass to Earth this week, I believe.
No. What is it? It's satellite. These are such sad pictures of Reiner. God. So what is it, like an object that's out there?
It's a comet, and it came in from outside the solar system, and then it makes its way by the sun, And as that happens, it melts and gives off. And these are pretty well-known phenomena, so they know the
Right.
properties. But this one is unusual because it's out. Most comets are from within the solar system. This one is from whoever knows where, and that's where it'll eventually head. But there were a lot of strange qualities about it. So Ed Loeb has done this before too with other. There was another comet that he similarly last year speculated if this could be some kind of a craft coming in from outside the solar system. So there's a lot of people that are kind of following it. I believe at the end of the week it'll be its closest pass to Earth, and then we'll see if we get.
Yeah.
Then we'll see if Independence Day happens and we get the mothership launched.
Yeah, exactly. They're coming. Maybe we don't know. That's going to be the biggest news of all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, it's just sad news this week to report on.
Well, some of the victims are coming out from the horrible shooting in Australia. And one of them is just, a 10-year-old little girl shot. And I mean, any life is sad to be lost, but a lot of the other victims were older, at least the ones they've released. There was also this extremely attractive Frenchman who was also shot and killed.
And then the sad thing too is there was also a Holocaust survivor who dove in front of his wife to protect her, and he was killed.
Right, they were both Holocaust survivors.
Yeah, that's
even you survived that, and then
yeah, I know. To think that he must have been pretty old too. It just.
I'm going to bring on a new story here, but this is kind of up our alley. It's on JonBenet Ramsey. This is on ABC News. So let's see what this is about. And to play it on this, do I have it on the screen properly? Let's check in. Yes. Okay.
Nearly 3 decades since the death of 6-year-old beauty queen JonBenet Ramsey, Boulder, Colorado police say they now have new evidence. Police have made it an annual tradition to provide updates on the case close to the time of her murder. ABC's Andrew Dinbert is here with the details. Andrew, this case has gone unsolved since 1996. So what's the latest we're looking at right now?
Fast approaching the 29-year anniversary of the death of JonBenet Ramsey. And as you mentioned, the Boulder Police Department tries to provide yearly updates. This year, they say they've investigated new leads. They've tested old evidence. And as you mentioned, they say they found new evidence, though they didn't say what exactly has been uncovered since 1996. The Boulder Police Department has received over 21,000 tips. They've taken trips to 19 different states to investigate leads, and they've interviewed over 1,000 people in connection with the case. The hope here is that they either find a new piece of evidence that blows this thing wide open, or that there are improvements in DNA or other forensic technology, and perhaps they have the answer with them right now, just waiting for that technology to improve. The case remains unsolved nearly 3 decades later.
Wow. All right, Andrew Dinbert, thank you for the update.
You guys have any thoughts on that case? I don't think we've ever discussed it.
Oh gosh, I posted their update this 2 days ago whenever it came out, the Boulder Police, and I called it it's just word salad, just spinning in circles, but saying nothing. And I have a different point of view than a lot of true crimers on it. I'm keep an open mind, but even when I was at my expert conference, JonBenet came up, we talked about it, and all of us, and these are 3 of the most prolific profilers, actually 4 of them were in there, and we all believe strongly it was an inside job. I could give you so many reasons why. The ransom note, that was written by Pansy. I know other experts came later. Many of them paid money. But if you look at the original analysis, it took over 20 to 30 minutes to write that note. It was 3 pages long. It was on her stationery. I say stationery because to me, stationery, legal pad, all of that is encumbered under the word stationery. Somebody got on to me like I meant roses and flowers or something. Stationary means just notes or a notepad of any sort. But anyway, the bonus number mentioned, the way she spoke, John, wake up, it's, I believe it's her, John Bonet was not in her normal underwear. She was in a size 12 bloomer underwear that were actually a Christmas gift that Patsy had bought for her niece that was unwrapped, and she was put in those bloomers. No culprit is going to know about that.
I didn't know that part. Yeah.
I didn't either.
I believe it was completely all of us at that conference. We had a long and actually I did a show on this with Greg McCrary, and he's of the opinion it was staged. I'm of the opinion it was staged later to look just so horrible that a family member couldn't do it. So
what did Greg think of John Douglas's? So John Douglas, famous FBI profiler, was hired, and he had a very different opinion of this.
Oh, well, we talked a lot about that because money talks, and we're both disappointed. And actually, well, because I don't think it's my place, I will keep some of the discussions private because they were private. But I don't think John was forthright.
What about DNA evidence in that case? Didn't that show that there was an intruder possibly? Or was that just random DNA evidence that I know famously they sent investigators over to, I think, Taiwan to look at the trying to get a match to that DNA from the manufacturer of the clothing?
Right. That was very famous when that happened. But essentially it's touch DNA. So it's not blood. It's not semen. It's not saliva. It's not some of the, it's skin cells, if you will. And they were at a party, and John Bonet was at a party. So essentially anybody she shook hands with, she touched, could have, I think it was just one fingernail, I believe. Don't hold me to that. That the touch DNA was on or under. And then it was also on her bloomers, on the bloomers, apparently. But it's been very much, it's very difficult to test now because of all the years and everything. But I will say, because you have to say both sides of the story, that John and the Ramseys, it was concluded, first of all, it was male. So John and her brother were excluded from the profile. And so because of that, at least the DA's office said that they were no longer considered suspects. But, I'm not sure law enforcement has that same point of view, to be honest.
It looks
Margaret,
like.
did you have any thoughts on that case?
Well, just from listening to Jen, it sounds like that, I have a feeling justice will never be served in that case.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound good to me at this point.
Well, the mother is dead. The father is still alive. And of course, her brother is still alive. And a lot of people have suspicions along those lines.
Yeah, with the brother.
There were some strange aspects to his behavior that were reported. And you don't usually see someone that young become a killer, but it does happen. And with someone who is born with those predilections. And again, I'm not accusing him of that, though. I mean, it's a terrible thing to saddle on someone if you don't have enough evidence.
Well, and I want to be clear when it comes to Burke, who was very young at the time. I personally don't think it was Burke. And the reason I say that is there was a huge lawsuit that was levied after reporting that was done, that Burke was the person who did this. And the lawsuit was won, and a lot of money was paid. And I really just don't think it was Burke because of just the intricacies of the garrote, the knot tying. She had a cracked skull. A lot of people don't realize that, she had a cracked skull. I mean, that's what killed her. And then I think the garrote happened later. She was garroted and sexually assaulted with Patsy Ramsey's paintbrush that was in a holder of items. This whole crime would have taken hours just to garrote the sexual assault, finding a notepad, getting writing it all out. And, the story was, Patsy was asleep, yet she was in her same clothes. There's so much there. I did a tweet on it. It's been a while now that outlined all the evidence that it was an insider job. Do I think it was purposeful? Absolutely not. I think it was an accident and a stage cover up.
Well, yeah. So similar, something like the Brian Walshe case then. Something happened and then there was a cover up.
Yeah. Way to bring us back around.
Yeah. I know.
So thinking about it,
go ahead.
Just
Sorry.
just thinking about it, trying to think about it logically, Jen. So if you could, to the degree that you could establish that this, we're really, really confident that staging was involved in the John Bonet case, does that itself establish that it had to be involve the family, or is there any scenario where staging could involve an intruder?
Well, it's very interesting in this case because just say you're an intruder that comes in there, which they tried to show. I love how they used the window he supposedly came through, yet there were cobwebs and spider webs all over it, just because they staged, again, I think a suitcase below the window, forgetting to take out the cobwebs. But in this case, why in the world would you go into a house on Christmas and sexually assault a little girl? First of all, you have to find her bedroom. This was a mansion, and it was a rambling type mansion, Kevin, for you, because you're a smarter person. Just a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. This is a rambling mansion, and her room was close to the Ramseys. And so somehow to go up to that room, and then you take her out. She doesn't scream. She doesn't say anything, but there's no sign that there was an assault in that room. And then you drag her all the way down to a place that law enforcement actually missed. They didn't even find that room. You remember John Ramsey found John A. Ramsey. Again, botched. I'll call it for what it is. That they thought rich guy. Remember the ransom note was used. Supposedly she'd been kidnapped. What kidnapper? And I can tell you the answer to this. What person who goes in to sexually assault a child then stages a kidnap, knowing that the child is left in the basement?
Right.
It's 0 cents.
And then write a long ransom note. Right.
It sounds very suspicious.
Yeah, it's absolutely, in my opinion, an insider job. Yes, there's this touch DNA, but we could go through that time and time again. Touch DNA isn't always reliable. There are so many cases. I was just talking about this with Chris Swecker, who also sometimes for those of you who might know him, he was my boss as an assistant special agent in charge, and then became assistant director of the FBI, really the #1 guy in charge of all criminal cases in the FBI. We're very good friends. And he works now for the Innocence Project, which I'm hoping to become part of that soon, because he talks a lot about all these touch DNA cases that are problematic. And I know people are saying, see, Brian Kuberger was touch DNA. To me, that is very different. That was a knife sheath snap that he unhooked and hooked and unhooked and hooked, and all of those skin cells each time is just building up around there. That is so much different than the kind of touch DNA I'm talking about, where literally some people, touched the side of a car once and things like that. So, or purportedly, right?
Right.
So anyway, that's a situation I think you have here. If there were skin cells where she touched somebody at that party, which is what I believe, and or all the lab people working on this bothers me too. I mean, I just don't have any confidence in a lot of what was done in the police investigation. I mean, she was taken upstairs by her dad and put on the floor, and people were all around. They called together a bunch of neighbors and were having like a little get together there while they were waiting. I mean, it wasn't handled like a murder. It was handled like a missing person. And that was a big problem. So in other words, that person,
Good.
did an ambulance worker, did whoever touch her and touch those fingers, there's so many possibilities.
Yeah, you know, and I can't remember. I'm trying to look up his name, and maybe you know it off the tip of your tongue, Jen. The scientist who first developed the method of using DNA to track down suspects, but who became the founder, I think, or one of the main proponents of the Innocence Project. And I think his argument was not so much that there was deliberate abuse, but just that mistakes in a rush to judgment that took place inside criminology labs could lead to a lot of false convictions. And so they used that to try to get, but now they use the same DNA evidence to try to find people in jail that were innocent, and that the DNA can be used to show that they didn't commit the crime. Do you know what the name of that guy was that founded that? He actually began the DNA testing, or was one of the early pioneers of it.
Well, Barry Scheck, you know, was one of the pioneers, but he's
That's right.
Peter Neufeld
He's an attorney.
also was involved in that. There's so many people that are involved in that now, but I believe Scheck started it. But I think who you're talking about, are you talking about the person that actually did the testing on John Bonet's?
I don't know if he was involved or not. I know he's the person that really pioneered DNA testing. So initially developed it, but then turned against it or was weary of it because of the way, in the hands of people that aren't properly trained, it can lead to mistakes.
Right, and contamination and all sorts of issues with that. So I thought it was Neufeld. But again,
Neufeld was, I think he was a lawyer too, like Scheck. So I'm trying to find the example. I'm searching on ChatGPT to see if I can find this, and I'm coming up with is Barry Scheck and Neufeld, but they're lawyers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking through this. But Peter Neufeld founded the Innocence Project, it says,
Right.
to use DNA testing to exonerate the wrongfully convicted. So, I mean, I support both, Jen. I support using DNA to find to find out who was responsible for the crimes, but also to free innocent people from jail.
Yeah.
Yes. Both. But you know, that the whole situation with John Bonet and that DNA, it needs to be concluded one way or the other. Do you know, does the audience know, they were indicted? Patsy and John Ramsey were indicted.
Yes. And the prosecution refused to bring him to trial, right?
Yep.
That's odd too, isn't it?
It's very.
Is it actually, talk about that, Margaret? Is that odd? Have you ever seen anything similar to that?
No, I mean, the fact that they were indicted and then the prosecutor decided not to bring them to trial, that to me is odd. I would think that in that case, they would have, maybe the prosecutor thought there was just still not enough evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So
I think that was the case. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, but because the standard for an indictment is much less. So
yeah,
I don't know, but I think it's still a little odd, if you ask me.
Oh, wait a minute. I want to respond, if you don't mind, to Julie Ann Dutson's comment. Julie Ann, listen, I am definitely not talking about the Innocence Project that is looking to exonerate Scott Peterson. Everyone needs to know this. I always highlight this on my Twitter about the Innocence Projects. There's a real Innocence Project that is very particular and very good, and that is the one that my friend and multiple FBI agents work for, or do pro bono work for, I should say. I'm not talking about the LA one. So what happens is other people, other attorneys decide, oh, I want to jump on this name. And they named themselves, I think, the LA Innocence Project, and it's getting confused with the real deal.
Oh,
So
that's too bad.
just to let you know, there's people who jump on the name, like the people who are doing the Scott Peterson, but that is not the Real Innocence Project. And I can tell you it infuriates the Real Innocence Project people. And they even came out with a statement. We have nothing to do with that. Don't get us confused with them.
Yeah, that's too bad because there is a lot of confusion there.
Yeah, anytime you steal a name like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so close.
I'm trying to read Alba Luna's comment, which it sounds like she has a cousin who was a victim of second-degree murder, if I'm reading right, and there was an early application of DNA testing, but no one has ever been convicted of her death. If I'm reading that right, you guys can see it on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, DNA has done so much. I don't know if you guys ever posted things on your channel, but I try to post about once a month because there's so many more than that. I could do one a week, but it's once a month, somebody who's been identified, somebody who's been exonerated from DNA. I am fascinated with the science of DNA and what it's meant for law enforcement.
Yeah.
It's been just,
and of course, music by Brian is here, and he studied that at the university level. He's from your channel, Jen.
yay.
He's here this morning. He's been a help with this stuff too.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Cece Moore, she's one of my favorite people. Worked a lot with her in the Koberger, just in reporting and things. And she's one of those people who can make it all seem understandable.
Yeah, we even saw just from the Brian Walshe trial how complicated it is. And in that testimony can tend to be a little bit confusing, I would think, for a jury.
I think it is confusing. You know, it was a lot in the Karen Reed case because of John O'Keefe's DNA found on the pieces of broken taillight and the back bumper. You know, that was a hair, or back of the car, I should say, not on the bumper, back of the car. I don't believe it was on the bumper. I think it was actually on the car. But nevertheless, it's complicated because instead of saying it's a trillion times that it's him, they say it's a trillion times that they work in the negative, that it couldn't be anybody else but him. Does that make sense? They don't say it's the person. Yeah. They exclude the other 8 trillion people in the universe.
Right.
Of the world.
Which is, it comes across during a trial as a little bit tedious to have to go over it, but they have to be very specific in the way they properly report the science to that jury.
It was a long day of DNA testimony in this trial. I wish they had stipulated to some of it. It was interesting to a point, and then after a while, it got very tedious, I thought.
I agree with you, Margaret. I think the big problem is it was just so much, and it's always that way. And it's also difficult to get somebody on the stand because they're all brilliant scientists, right? That can sort of break it down and make it more relatable.
I know that would be easy. I mean, I think we would have been better off if the two sides had stipulated to some of the witnesses and what they were going to testify about. Mm-hmm. But there was no agreement there. So we had to hear them all.
Well, so Margaret, what about this? Is this something that you found a lot in court where the defense didn't want to stipulate to things that you thought they should, but they wanted to drag it out for one reason or another? Is that something you encountered as a prosecutor?
Yeah, of course, because they would want me to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So, for example, let's take a simple operating under the influence of alcohol case. Every single case you have to prove public way, because if you're drunk driving in your own driveway or long driveway, if you're on a private way, that doesn't meet the element because you have to be driving on a public way. So sometimes prosecutors forget that element and they forget to introduce evidence that the person was driving on a public way. And so some of the evidence would be, you'd ask the police officer, were there, describe the highway, describe the road. And the police officer would know that we're trying to get evidence of public way. So he'd say, oh, there's, it's Main Street, and there are, stop signs and whatever it would take, but they would have to, show something that it was a public way. But sometimes defense attorneys would stipulate to that, and then we wouldn't have to go through the effort. But I think it was smart, if you're a defense attorney, not to stipulate to it, because what if the prosecution forgets? Then your client gets off. So, and it happens.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
All of us here, this is people watching. We haven't, even lawyers, if you're not a trial lawyer, you don't have experience of this stuff. So it's very educating for all of us to watch some of these trials and learn how the system works. And so much thought and effort has gone into the law that's established by precedent over centuries. And it's so, but there most of it is common sense, but to a lot of us, there are still aspects of it that may not be completely, it's common sense, but you may not be able to figure it out entirely on common sense. So you need a lawyer to explain it to you first.
Right.
Anybody have any questions in chat? Anything that you want our experts, Jen and Margaret, to go through? Or if you'd like my expertise in how to make a good drink, let me know.
I wonder if what they have done, I think I'm talking about the Brown University shooting now. I'm wondering if there's going to be any DNA evidence there that could be helpful. Of course, I completely have no faith right now in that investigation, or that the crime scene was done properly, like by the FBI's ER team or the state's ERT team, to analyze and look for, hair that dropped to the ground, or, sweat, possibly, or if he nicked a finger. And then I believe he was in gloves. We have that photo of him exiting, which I hope somebody recognizes him. I know people think it's not much to go on, but think about your spouse or brother or father. He has a very unique gait.
Yes.
Duck-footed sort of, and he's bigger, and the clothing he chooses. I think if you know him, you would know that was him.
Like the kid who tried to assassinate Trump this summer, it was his father that turned him in, that recognized him.
You're right.
There's a face there. I think that was a lot different. This is really bad, Kevin. When you see it, it's from a distance. It's really just the back of the individual. But there's that but agreed that hopefully something like that would happen even without a face.
On the screen, is that Rob Reiner with his son, or who are they showing him with?
Yeah. So that's the son that had the drug addiction problems. That's Nick.
So he has more than one son? Okay.
Yeah, he has, I think they have 4 kids altogether, but that's the son that it's been reported by TMZ, Nick Reiner in custody. So, but my understanding, so they did a movie together too. Nick talked about addiction, and my understanding, he recently wrote the script for a movie. It was something to do with Charlie. I forget the full name of the movie, but where he talked about addiction, and Rob, his dad, was involved with it. I believe maybe directed it. I'm not sure, but I'm wondering, I think it was reported that the son was living with them as well, but maybe he, I hate to guess, but they obviously are questioning him. So they must have reasons to question him. Sad.
Well, it says he's in custody.
In custody, right. So he's in custody and he's being questioned in custody.
It's amazing that the only source on this is People Magazine, though.
No, TMZ is a source, and People.
Okay.
So this is from TMZ right here, the one that we're looking at, Court TV. TMZ, Nick Reiner in custody.
Well, it was interesting because in the Celeste Rivas case, TMZ came out and said, she was found frozen or partially frozen and decapitated. But the police were not happy about that. So they came out and said, no, she wasn't frozen and she wasn't decapitated. They didn't come off the dismemberment piece of it. But TMZ is usually, especially with the LA crimes and the other, the celebrity type crimes, they're very accurate. Remember, they came out with the first reporting. They had the news clip of Tyler Robinson in the neighborhood. They do a good job, but that Celeste Rivas case is another hot mess case where there's a lot of controversial reporting at best.
Yeah.
Heartstar she's in the UK, brings up a case called Dawn Rhodes. And so I just looked this up. The case of Dawn Rhodes, murdered in 2016 in Red Hill, Surrey, is one of the most striking and disturbing examples of double homicide, coercive control, and a rare double jeopardy retrial in the UK. So they must have different laws on double jeopardy there. The original incident, police responded to a 999 call from Robert Rhodes, who claimed his estranged wife, Dawn, had attacked him and their young child with a knife. Dawn was found dead on the kitchen floor, her throat cut so deeply that all the structures of her neck were severed. Both Rhodes and the child had knife wounds, which Rhodes claimed Dawn inflicted during a violent outburst. Rhodes argued self-defense, claiming Dawn flipped and attacked him and the child during an argument. The child was under 10 years old and supported the story, telling police that the mother had attacked them both. The jury accepted this version, and Rhodes was found not guilty of murder in 2017. In 2021, now older and in therapy, the child revealed the truth, that their father had planned the murder days in advance. He manipulated the child into helping him by calling it our plan. This is interesting. So the child described how they were told to ask Dawn to close her eyes and hold out her hands for a surprise, leave the room, and then Rhodes attacked her from behind, and then he inflicted the wounds on himself and tried to force the child to injure him. He cut the child's arm deeply to support the false story. So now there is the Court of Appeals quashed the acquittal of, so this must have just happened. Court of Appeals quashed the acquittal in 2024 and ordered a retrial. The retrial revealed.
Surprising. Wow.
Yeah.
To quash an acquittal. I'll have to look into that legally. That's really interesting. Huh.
And then, so in December of 2025, this month, a jury unanimously convicted him of the murder of Dawn Rhodes, and also child cruelty, perverting the course of justice, and 2 counts of perjury.
Okay.
So
Jeez.
So thank you very much for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Heartstar. That is a really interesting case.
It is very interesting. I get a lot of legal aspects in that. So yeah, that was in the UK, and our laws are based on English common law. So double jeopardy, I would think, would be the same over here. Well, I'll have to look into that one legally. There's so much to look into right now. My head's going to explode.
And of course, there's no way around double jeopardy in this country unless you get a related.
Well, we have the same laws,
right? So,
though. Like a double jeopardy is if you're talking English common law. So that's why I'm wondering what happened there.
But if it's not built into the Constitution, we have a Constitution here. England doesn't have a written Constitution.
But it has similar laws, though.
Yeah. So obviously, it's rare.
Our laws based
it's very
on
rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you very much, Allie, for the donation. Appreciate it. We all appreciate it. I'm just looking through the comments to try to get back to that on that case. All right.
And by the way, I'm going to go back to, I'm sorry, we're skipping around back to the Rob Reiner case. The sad thing is his son started battling addiction at age 15. So sad. 15. Think about it. you know, and believe
Those
it or
children
not-
of Hollywood, you know, they end up kind of messed up. A lot
well,
of
it's
them.
not just children of Hollywood. Addiction is a nationwide problem, and it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why some people are very supportive of Trump's, making drug lords from the South a official terrorism group so he can blow up their U-boats.
To be honest with you, I people may not agree with me, and I don't like to get political on this, but I don't mind that at all. I'm glad he's taken a strong stance, as long as they are drug dealers. If I guess that would be an issue, but I like the fact that he's taking a strong stance against the cartels because they are bringing drugs into this country, and people are dying every day. So I believe in a strong stance against the cartels. Watch, I'll
Especially that fentanyl, where people are taking
Oh.
something that they're not even in, they don't even realize they're taking fentanyl,
I
but it's
know.
been laced into something, and then
know.
and it's so deadly.
I know. I agree.
Judge Carroll is here. Thank you, Judge Carroll. She says it seems that back to the Brown case. It seems to me that the person of interest in the Brown case, whose name and photo was published yesterday and who has now been released, will file a Section 1983 claim, as he should.
As he should. Yes, Carol. And it's interesting because his picture, he looks like it. I mean, pictures, I don't know, but he looks like an innocent, nice person in the picture. That was.
He doesn't look. Yeah, right. He doesn't look. He looks normal.
I know. We have to, but maybe that was just he doesn't look the part, but you never know. But this poor guy, his that went viral yesterday. Absolutely viral. So, and the fact that it came out that he had a long history of mental health issues. That's, if he really does, I mean, my God, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Heartstar says that double jeopardy has been abolished in the UK. So I'd like to hear what was that? Did they pass a law? Was there,
That's
was there
hard
a
to
ruling?
believe.
Yeah.
When was that? I can't imagine double jeopardy. Well, anyway, I don't know. That's hard to believe. Double jeopardy is so important. It's such an important part of our Constitution. I mean, can you imagine? How many times that would be awful. You get a prosecutor or a DA who's out to get somebody. Imagine how many times they would be tried.
Yeah, and we've seen. Oh, we got clock, but we've seen that a lot in recent years. The politicization of justice.
Yeah.
I mean, and let's not forget dual sovereignty, right? So, for instance, in the case of Luigi Mangione, where he's charged in 2 jurisdictions, so you can be tried in 2 jurisdictions for the same crime, essentially, because they're not the same crime, right?
Right. That's different.
One is judged under state law, but still, it's a way to sort of get past the jeopardy idea, if you will.
Yeah, it's state versus federal, but I have to look into I'll look into that case because I find it interesting. We could do a show just on that case and the law in England.
So speaking of the dual sovereignty, let's talk about Birchmore then. I know Margaret was looking into this a little bit this weekend. So far, Farwell has only been charged in federal court. But normally it's murder is the purview of state court. So what's the latest on that, and what are some of the issues involving that?
So on Birchmore, I did a big podcast series on that. If anybody is interested in It's a Crime with Margaret McLean, so I also have podcast and YouTube. But he was charged under federal law. It's public corruption, right? But as far as the murder, it could be a state court jurisdiction. And I did read something recently where they're not seeking the death penalty because they can under federal law. Here in Massachusetts, under state law, you can't. But the murder could be tried in state court. So we'll see what happens there.
I want to add to this because I did just I didn't do a series. I did one to explain the federal law by which the charges were brought. It really wasn't public corruption. There really is no statute, by the way, for public corruption. You still have to commit a crime, whether that's
Right.
bribery or whether it's a conspiracy or something else. But how they got it, they got him charged, which I thought was very interesting, is they charged him with murdering a witness in a crime.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did. I forgot about that. You're 100% right. Murdering a witness in a crime. That's right. I
Right.
stand corrected. It wasn't public corruption. It was murdering a witness in a crime. You're right.
And there is, just from somebody who worked public corruption for the Bureau, there
Yeah.
is public corruption statute. It's
Yeah,
public
but
corruption wrongdoings, but you have to find the federal statute that matches what they did.
yeah.
But yeah,
That's
so
right.
I just wanted to clarify that because
Thank you.
oh no.
No, thank you. I'd forgotten that. I mean, I that went out of my mind. It's been a while since I covered that. That was now a year ago, and I had the family on and everything, and I forgot about that. But you're right. That's why they charged him federally.
Maui Swift has a nice update for us on the double jeopardy issue in United K. But I wanted first to get to good morning, Francesca. So she's discussing a case you guys might be familiar with it. So she says, I was so frustrated to see idiots accusing Scott Farris of killing his father. He had an irrefutable alibi. Only Melody Farris could have done it. The jury convicted her, and they still accuse him. Do you guys know that case at all?
Yes. And I agree with Francesca.
Okay.
It's so ridiculous that he would have ever even be, what's happening on social media and everything is wrong. It's the mother. And she was convicted, thankfully.
Okay. All right. So, Francesca, you got the seal of approval from Jen Coffindaffer. So you got that, got that going for you.
For what that's worth, that and get you a Starbucks cup of coffee.
Oh, that
Which
sounds
I could
good
go
right
for.
now.
Yeah, right,
Starbucks.
Margaret.
The egg bites. Oh.
And a scone from there. Yeah.
I had to lay off the scones. I was bad this weekend, speaking of that. Oh, man.
So Maui says that the Justice Act of 2003 in England and Wales and Double Jeopardy Act, I guess, in Scotland of 2011 allows retrials for serious offenses if new compelling evidence emerges.
Okay, that's interesting. I guess, you really have to have new compelling evidence. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's always going to be new evidence, so that's a real slippery
really
slope
interesting. So nobody. Oh, there you are, Brian, making sure your hair looks good for the cameras. Yeah, I'll look into that because I think that's would be very interesting to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. So there's a question from the judge, and then I have a conference call. I'm going to have to slip away, but the question from Judge Erskine is just any update on Melody Buzzard. And I know the reason why, the judge, I think I know, I don't want to speak for her, but, was the first reason why I ever looked into the Melody Buzzard case is because I was so worried that it was much like Harmony, because at first it was reported that, they didn't know when she had been last seen. But of course, now we know it was October of this year when she was last seen on that trip. And so the latest is zero latest, other than the fact that the mother at least loaded up a moving van and left the house. We know that. And then secondarily, I think the fact people are very upset, that the Bureau and nobody seems to be saying anything, but that's good news, in my opinion. When people are desperate, that's when you see $50,000 reward. And we definitely need the public's help. We're at a dead end. That's when there's a problem. When you have active leads and you're going down the road, well, you don't reach out for the public's help. So I will say that to me, I'm looking at it that way, especially with the FBI involved.
Thank you for the update.
Just reading through the comments. So Francesca says that double jeopardy in the UK has been partially abolished for serious crimes only. when new and compelling evidence. So yeah, that's confirming what Maui said.
Does that not align with some states here if there's new and compelling evidence, or it's a red line?
Isn't double jeopardy in the Constitution,
Yeah,
Margaret?
it is.
So I don't think a state
US
would be able to.
It's
Yeah.
in the U.S. Constitution. Yeah. So
No, I know it's federal law and in all states, but I just wondered how bright that line is. I know
Carol
it's
says, I follow British law, being a law nerd, and my understanding is there is an exception to double jeopardy for serious crimes when there is compelling new evidence. So yeah, confirming what Maui said. No, there's no general double jeopardy exception, but they've opened the door to it.
yeah. So for example, it's serious. So basically, Karen could be retried.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I guess
not
if
covering it.
somebody confesses, somebody's in jail for murder, and somebody else comes out and confesses to it, then
Yeah, if you have really compelling evidence like that, it definitely stinks.
well, I guess, or yeah.
Julie is interested in the Birchmore
yeah.
case. Julie says, can you explain the Birchmore cases even more? Do the investigators think Farwell did it? I believe obviously they do, Julie. They've charged him. So it sickens me when Reed's father piggybacks off Sandra. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the Free Karen readers have done that. Have they wear their, if you see, whenever there's a lots of times when there's a hearing for, a Matthew Farwell hearing or something like that, they will stand outside with signs, and everybody wears the same Karen pink colors and supporting Karen. So some of the FKR crowd is also on the Birchmore case, but I do think the cases are very different, and it is interesting. So that will be an interesting case to follow. I feel terribly for Sandra. She was abused for a long time by corrupt officers who passed her along when she was in the Explorers program. And then she was at one point, fooling around with Matthew Farwell, fell in love with him, and he was much older than she was. He led her along, and then she became pregnant, and she it appeared that she committed suicide, right? They found her body, and she was attached to the doorknob by her backpack, but her hyoid bone was broken. It looked like she was actually strangled. So ultimately, Farwell was arrested for that, and federally for killing a witness and all that. But anyway, the fingers point to Farwell. But then the interesting thing is, she believed she was pregnant with Farwell's baby, and it turned out she wasn't. It's somebody else's baby, but Farwell thought it was his anyway. So there was motive to kill her and stage some sort of suicide. So that's the gist of it. Very sad, because she seemed like a sweet girl. And when I had my podcast, I had the family on, and Barb Wright, who's the aunt, and we talked a lot about Sandra and how she was abused for years, and what a sweet girl she was. So if you want to go listen to that, It's a Crime Media with Margaret McLean. I'm sorry, that one is It's a Crime with Margaret McLean, wherever you get your podcasts. So I spent a long time on that.
Why did you?
Your life is.
What?
Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why did you?
Go ahead, please.
Jen?
No, It's a Crime Meet. Oh, wait a minute. I think.
Why do I have the two different things? Because the handle for YouTube is at It's a Crime Media. There was no handle that was at It's a Crime. I couldn't get that handle. So but it's still It's a Crime with Margaret McLean. So the reason I had It's a Crime years ago. So I did a live radio show, and it was around 2011, 2012, where they put it into podcasts, and I didn't even know what a podcast was. My biggest mistake was not continuing in the realm of podcasting at that point. Then I would have had a huge, that would have been amazing, but I just didn't predict the future like I should have. So then I got back into it a few years ago and then just started YouTube. This year. So I'm almost at 1,000, not quite there yet, maybe 15 more to go. So.
So if you haven't, head over, please, and just give Margaret, do her a favor, give her a subscribe. She only needs 15 more, and that 1,000 is a very, it
Big
looks like a
deal.
real number, so it's important.
But then I will say another weird thing. So a lot of people have only followed me through the podcast, and they say, "Hey, how come you're not podcasting on Brian Walshe?" I'm like, "God, I've been doing Brian Walshe every single day, but on YouTube." But there's plenty of people who only listen to podcasts and they don't necessarily listen to YouTube. So now I'm finding I have to do both. And doing a podcast episode is much harder because it's all audio. So, there's more editing involved and the music behind it and all that. So
Francesca has a question, and maybe Carol can answer this. My question is, who decides the evidence is compelling enough, though? Anyone knows? She's talking about in the UK with double jeopardy, and I would guess it has to be overturned by a new trial would have to be ordered by a higher court. That would be my guess. I don't know if you guys agree with that. Maybe Carol will know.
Yeah.
And Maui says there's no evidence there was corruption in the Birchmore case. Right. So that was the division of the FBI that was investigating it.
Yeah.
But
The
that doesn't
public
mean that
corruption
it's related
division.
to
Yeah.
right.
But I think, you could say that there was corruption in in the Explorers program within the Stoughton Police Department when they were able to abuse those young, Sandra Birchmore for so long. And there were others too. So I would call that public corruption.
There's a good question from Heartstar, and I'm sure either one of you ladies can answer that. Can Karen Reed be charged? Oh, Karen, you mean Karen Reed? Oh, wow. I thought you were talking about Birchmore, but I mean Farwell. Can Karen Reed be charged federally for murder? No, that would be double jeopardy. But my one, can the feds charge somebody with murder? So can they charge Farwell with murder?
So there are certain exceptions to the rule where the feds can charge somebody with murder. And the best case that I can, recent case is, oh my gosh, Sampson. So look up the Sampson case. What's his first name? But anyway, he was convicted. He committed murders across state lines. So he murdered somebody not very far from where I live. And then so that would be in Massachusetts. Then he went up, he had a killing spree and he killed somebody in New Hampshire. So I think there were 3 people all together and he crossed state lines in this killing spree. So as a result, they brought the federal charges against him. So that's a good Gary Sampson. If you look that up, that's somebody who was
I remember it. Yeah,
federally. Yeah. And then it was a death penalty case as well. And that was a while ago now.
And thank you very much, Claire Murray. You're generous as always, undeserved on our part, but we're working our best here. So very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
That was a very nice
Christmas
donation.
Yeah. Heartstar says they have a lot of interesting cases in the UK. And it is, as we see when discussing this double jeopardy issue, it gives us an interesting way to discuss things like double jeopardy where you want, the reasoning behind it. So this is probably why Judge Carroll is so interested in studying.
Well, there's a good Judge Carroll right there, if you want to put that up.
Mm-hmm. Is that the one?
No. It's on the very bottom. As I understand it, the Court of Appeals can order a new trial.
Okay. So which would be a higher court. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you want to put that one up,
I will
she answers a lot
scroll
of
down to it. I'm a few seconds behind on that. Let's see. So her other court was on Court TV with Judge Ashley. I spoke about the coercive control Farwell had over Sandra when she became an adult, likening it to severe domestic violence.
Yeah.
So she was born with no male figures in her life. She was raised by her mother and a grandmother.
Right.
So a very, very, difficult situation for her.
Right.
And
they started abusing. Right. They started abusing Sandra before she was an adult, but the relationship continued after. So, but the abuse started when she was, younger than 18.
Right. Just trying to get to it, so I don't want to skip anybody. So Brian said Karen could theoretically be charged by the feds, and it isn't double jeopardy because of the sovereign doctrine. No, I don't. I don't think that's true. You cannot. She could not be charged with murder again. I don't know. Would you guys agree with that?
I don't think so either. No, I don't think they would.
Let's.
If there was any exception out there, I don't think they would touch it.
Yeah.
So, well, Kevin. Oh, I guess we have a good chat going though.
Yeah, the numbers they've been growing steadily throughout the morning, and they're actually the highest that we've had
All
during
right.
the
Well,
trial.
we can stay on.
So Carol says, yeah, Karen cannot be charged with murder again. Hard stop. Yeah. So that's what I believed, and that's what we all.
That's what I believe too.
That's what double jeopardy is. So So I've talked to Judge Carol on the phone a lot of times, and they're always says, you guys have heard her on the show. They're great conversations, very intellectual, at least on her part. I'm more just listening. But we disagree on the Karen Reed case. But I'm not gonna put words in her mouth. But that shows that people can have difference of opinion and still have civil discussion and become even friends through it. And Carol's focus was not so much on the evidence, but as the law in that case and defendants' rights and things like that, if I remember right. And these things are tricky. So the laws are there to protect all of us. So if there is a violation, and I'm not saying there was in any way of Karen's rights as part of the investigation or the prosecution, then regardless of what the evidence says, to a degree, those laws are there to protect all of us, to make sure that there's no abuse in that process. And again, I certainly don't, not an ounce of evidence has ever emerged to show any kind of planting of evidence or any intentional manipulation. Nothing on that. I did get, Margaret, a little bit of an answer perhaps on the Ring video, because this is one of the remaining mysteries of the case. There are a few. So video of Karen arriving home at 12:36 in the morning and then pulling into the garage at 12:42 is missing.
Yeah.
And is it deleted or just missing? Also video of when Karen and Jen and Kerry went out to leave to go searching for John at 5:45. That's missing too. Was it deleted? Well, it looks like no, it looks like perhaps just from the weather, it just never recorded. And the reason I say that is because no notification, John's phone was set so that if a video was recorded, a notification would go to his phone. And my understanding is that no notification went to his phone, which would imply, if I understand it correctly, that it just meant no video was triggered. So perhaps the snow got in the way.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm sorry, but I've got to switch. My mind goes, I'm back to, look at this, Nick Reiner, the son who had the addiction problem, is under arrest and held on $4 million bail. So they must have had some solid evidence that he did it.
TV.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's from Court TV, the feed in the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's breaking news right there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
What a tragedy. I mean, imagine what that must have felt like to know that your son is attacking you.
I know. And, he was, like I said, he's been in and out of rehab since age 15. And I'm sure the parents were, trying to help him with that addiction. It's tough. I mean, I'm, if you start at age 15, think about how hard it would be to kick an addiction problem like that. So I'm sure it will come out what exactly happened and what the motive was, but I wonder if he was on drugs when he did it. Well, if he did it, obviously he's been arrested, but innocent until proven guilty. But what a horrible thing to be stabbed by your own son.
and depending on how the order of things was, to see your wife stabbed or your husband stabbed.
Oh my God.
Just
Oh, it's horrible. And the fact that, they're elderly, they're older. I mean, they
Yeah.
look good for their age, of course, but
Mhm.
I mean, one was in the 70s and the other one was 68. So it's just, I forget the age, but anyway, that's just horrible news.
Great comment by Brian, who's helping us out here. In the 2019 case of Gamble versus U.S., the Supreme Court upheld the dual sovereignty doctrine, reiterating that the double jeopardy clause only bars successive or concurrent prosecutions by the same sovereign. So you guys we need our constitutional scholar here to discuss that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Margaret?
Yeah, no,
Any
I mean,
comments on that?
that's very interesting. I'm sure it doesn't happen very often, though. So I don't think we have any chance of seeing Karen Reed charged federally. Just saying. But that's thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Oh my God.
By the same sovereign. Yes, I've never heard. So that would suggest that you could violate double jeopardy. I've never heard of that happening, but
yeah.
What do you think of that, Margaret?
I'm sorry. I'm so focused on this Rob Reiner case in the Sun, but I'd have to look that case up and give you a thought process on that. But
okay, we'll give you homework.
Yeah. I'm sure it doesn't happen very often, though. It'll be interesting to see in what circumstances that happened. So
hopefully Carol can bail us out here with.
Don't hold out hope for Karen to be prosecuted federally. Nobody.
Right.
No.
Hopefully Carol can bail us out here with some discussion on that. And
Yeah.
she also says that she'll be on Boston 25 live today on the murder case of 4-year-old. Oh, I don't know how to say that name. Azalea Ortiz in Massachusetts, Kevin's hometown. So Lawrence is where I'm originally from, where Margaret used to work. Talking about my upcoming federal petition. So what time is that on? You're usually on at 7. No, Boston 25. Yeah. What time is?
Yeah.
I guess that'll be recorded.
I'm on Channel 10, not Boston 25. That's
tonight.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be recorded. So probably replayed at different shows throughout the day on Channel 25.
Yeah.
So Brian thinks that Karen won't be charged federally, but not because of double jeopardy, but because the DOJ doesn't like losing cases. I mean, I can't remember any cases where the federal government was willing to challenge double jeopardy like that, but maybe they exist. I don't know.
Yeah, normally murder is handled by the states, but I don't see where the federal government would get involved. Like under what circumstances would it become federal jurisdiction? So I question that.
I mean, what if in theory dramatic new evidence did emerge? Like it did in the case for instance, like it did in the UK case. But what if video emerged?
Of Karen actually.
Yes, hypothetically. Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, Carol thought I was in Worcester. I was in Worcester for 20 years. That's where I owned a bar. I actually grew up in Lawrence, and I went to Worcester when I went to Clark University, where Judge Carroll also went. And that was my connection to Worcester. I ended up bartending there starting before my senior year. And then I worked in the Boston area, but didn't like the 9-to-5 cubicle lifestyle. So I went back to bartending and managing the bar that I worked at called the Blarney Stone, which is no longer there.
I wish I could have checked it out, Kevin, actually.
Yeah. And then eventually bought a bar that was a college bar in the city.
In Worcester. What was the name of the bar again, Kevin?
The bar that I first worked at was called the Blarney Stone. The other bar was called Leacham's Pub, and I believe it's still there.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Leacham is a county in Ireland. I did not give it that name. It had been that name since like the 70s.
Okay.
So My family is from Cork and Killarney.
Oh,
Those
wow.
those those were the names that I would have used if it was up to me.
Wow.
Do you know your ancestry at all? Where they're
Me?
from, and have you traced that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I did. I mean, my dad, there was a book. So there was a book that went back has been written and passed down through the generations all the way from Scotland. So the MacLeans are from the Isle of Mull in Scotland, and this book was
Oh.
passed down. And then for 1976, the 200th anniversary, my dad redid it. Like he made it into a book form. So I mean, it's for the family, so it wasn't published, but yeah, it was really so well done. You could trace all the branches going all the way back. So that's my dad. So he's, and then of course that's the McLean. So that's direct on my dad's side. But then, my grandmother was, let's see, English. My mom was an O'Brien, so Irish and so I think I'm English, Irish, Scottish, and German. Yeah. So, and I did do ancestry at one point, and it came out exactly the way I thought it would. So there were no surprises in the family.
My grandparents were actually born in Ireland, and so my grandfather had the brogue all his life. And I met
Oh, wow.
many of my relatives that used to come over to visit. I have not made the journey back. Many of my family have. My father, to see, for instance, my grandfather, where he was born, the building is still there, but it's just basically a cow shed.
Oh,
And
wow.
there were,
Wow.
I forget, I think there were 14 kids. And they lived in this basically a hut, without a floor. I believe it was a dirt floor. And
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty wild. I can't believe it's still there.
yeah. And when my
Jeez.
grandfather was the youngest boy, there were a few girls that were younger. But there was an incident when my grandfather was like 3 or 4 years old. And remember, these were all farm workers back then. So it was hard work and a lot going on. And they had a nanny that tried to drown my grandfather in the river. It was called the Black River. It's called the Black River. And so because of that, they decided that they had too many kids there, and they sent him to be raised with an aunt and an uncle on a different farm that was about 20 miles away, but 20 miles away was a world away.
Oh,
So
yes.
it meant that he grew up not knowing his brothers and sisters and his parents. And
Wow.
eventually this was the time of the revolution where Ireland was fighting England for its independence, and he was, as a young boy, like 14 or something, ended up on a British list for running messages or something and had to leave the country.
Oh, my
And
God.
so he left. That's how he ended up coming over here. But
Wow.
as soon as, at some point after he had established himself in this country, he did become, close again to his family. They reconnected to each other, and other ones had come over here too and settled in Chicago and New York. And but he would go right up until he became older. He would go back to Ireland every couple of years and spend time there. But that's my grandfather. So it's not that, you heard, go to school barefoot. He really did,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
different
Very
world.
interesting. Yeah, it is was a different world. Yeah. So, boy, crazy news.
This might be towards
Oh, that's
you, Margaret.
interesting.
Oh,
If I have
Brian knows.
male, what's what's Del-calcium DNA mark? Test for Del-calcium DNA markers. In other words, related to Brian Boru.
I don't even think Brian Boru is a real character, isn't it? Isn't that from like Irish mythology? Is that a real? I don't know if it's a real person.
I don't know.
If it is, you could be like you're descended from the gods, Margaret.
Maybe. That's funny.
We always suspected that, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh. God knows who I could be related to. asked defense when the verdict will happen. They told her they cannot ask the judge to wait for her if she leaves the courthouse. What's that? Like, wait for who?
Valeska says he was a real person, Brian Baru. Okay. All right.
Oh, okay. Okay. Huh. That's interesting. Well, I'll have to look him up too. I have so much homework. I have a lot of homework. I better start writing down my assignments. Jeez.
So, of course, during the second Karen Reed trial on this channel with our panel, we were live on the air with the close friends of John's. So John Jackson and Brendan Kane.
Yeah.
They were with the family waiting at the American Legion post. And we got word that there was a verdict. And we were on the phone with them, if you remember. I don't know if you were here at that moment, Margaret. And we told them, and they're like, "Oh, we hadn't heard anything." And they were in the car in the parking lot to do the interview with us. So then Brendan ran inside the post and said, "Yes, we're on the move. We got to go." And so that's how they found out from us.
Yeah, we were covering that. At that point, I was covering it with you guys. I was part of the panel, and I remember exactly where I was. Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, when the verdict came down, well, there was notice that there was a verdict. I was in Market Basket with a huge shopping cart full of stuff. So I was like, oh my God. So I ran with the shopping cart, and I wanted to get through, at that point. And I got through the line, and unfortunately I wanted to try to get back to home to be on with you guys, and I didn't make it. They announced the verdict rather quickly in that case. Yeah. So, it's one of those things I'll always remember where I was. Ugh.
Yeah. Dramatic moment for sure.
It was so dramatic.
Emotional moment for so many people. For, obviously the families, most importantly, both sides. But just for a lot of us that have invested a lot of time into it, one way or the other. It was emotional for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was.
Our moderator, Thomas Fleming, his wife's a relative of Benjamin Franklin. Well, good old Ben got around, so he's probably got a love. He was kind of a playboy.
I didn't really know that about him. That's funny. You know your history so well. I love that about you, Kevin. You're so good at
There was a lot of so they were all basically emissaries to the French during the war. And John Adams, who was very kind of upright and very morally an old Puritan descendant, he couldn't stand Franklin because Franklin was someone who wouldn't get up until noon and would spend the night partying with the French women and drinking. And of course, by then he was already like in his 70s, I think. So he was still, but I think Franklin sounds like perhaps the most interesting character of the whole period.
Yeah.
And of course, he's from Boston.
Yep.
He grew up in Boston and eventually moved to Philly and created his fortune there.
Yeah.
Cindy likes my stories.
Yeah, you do have interesting stories, Kevin. I agree with Cindy. You do.
I wish I had more, One of the things about my time in the bar industry is so many things that happened and that I witnessed, and I never wrote them down. And I have a good memory, but they will come back to me at the strangest time with something that I hadn't thought about since it happened 30 years, and it'll come back to me, and it just something will trigger it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. Well,
Stephen is related to Karen. I don't think I have anybody famous in my blood. Definitely no heroes or gods or warriors or.
I bet you do, Kevin. You're probably related to some of the famous storytellers, back in the day.
Well, on my mom's side, I'm related to the Bradfords going back to the 1600s, and some people have put on their tree that we're related to William Bradford from the Mayflower.
Oh,
but
wow.
which would, for me as someone who loves his story, that would have been exciting. But as I researched it closely, not sure, but don't think so. I think there was another Bradford was a fairly common name, and there was another Bradford family that came over in the second generation with the Puritans. So in like the 1650s or something like that. And but it's murky because they all tended to use the same names over and over again for their children.
Yeah.
And you'll see, so you'll in the wives too. So you'll literally see the same couple's names over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. Bradford's a common name here. Is that your
Yeah.
mother's maiden name?
No, but it would be her maiden name was McDonald.
Ah,
But on her mom's side was Bradford, going back a
I
couple of
see.
generations. And
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Very interesting.
they were actually from Claremont, New Hampshire, which is on the Vermont border. And it looks like that's where that particular Bradford line moved there at some point in the early 1700s from Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Well, I do have to get off the air. I've got to do some stuff around here, and then I have my eye appointment. I hope this jury verdict doesn't come right when I'm at that. You know how like the skin appointment and the eye appointments. For the eye appointment, it's the regular eye appointment once a year type of thing. It just takes forever to get back in. So
I'm going to stay on a little bit with people because I have a science
Okay.
story. I want to go over something from the weird science department.
Okay.
And,
Well,
but any one of us will text each other if we
Yeah.
find out something is going on in court. I will text you. People in chat that have my phone number, like Tom, please text me if you see something going on and I'm not in front of the screen. I'll keep it running, but I don't want to miss it either. So we'll all just
Yeah.
stay in touch with each other.
Yeah, no, and I'll just take myself off and I can always pop back in. It's just sometimes I get behind and it's not around the corner this time. The eye appointment place is
Right.
about an hour away. So
Oh, okay. All
yeah,
right. That's too
pain
bad.
in the
Well,
neck.
you have figured out how to go on your phone. So if we get a verdict,
Yes,
unless
yes.
she's actually in with the doctor, she will come on with us.
I will. I was actually Kevin was worried Friday if you guys were on. I was driving. I learned how to get onto StreamYard as I was driving. So the whole ride, it made it very interesting to my friend's house.
Mhm.
And Christine says hello to everybody, by the way. So
And we'll have to have her back on soon.
absolutely. All right. Well, I'll take myself off and great
If
conversation.
you want, I can take you off and then I'll keep an eye for when you're back waving or something like that, and I'll pull you back.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, Margaret. We'll see you soon. I want to go eat because it's one of the things for me. I've lost a lot of weight this year, and now that my eating is somewhat back to normal, I try to, as soon as I'm hungry, don't take advantage of that urge and go eat. But before I do want to as people know on this channel, I do want to discuss things that I'm interested in, and maybe some of you will be too. And one of them is science. I had on a guest this Saturday, an MIT scientist whose group is doing research. They've developed an AI tools that help design proteins at the molecular level that are used for drug development. So to help fight cancer and things like that. Unfortunately, at the very beginning of that interview, I had unprecedented technical problems, but he stayed on patiently, and I was able to reset and get it going, and we had the interview. I still had troubles for the whole interview where his audio was, and it was not his fault, it was my fault, but it was something with my computer, but I could only hear about 40 or 50% of what he was saying. And so it's just too bad because such an intelligent, great guest to have on, but hopefully we can do more of that. So one of the things, and I had brought this up in the interview with him, and one of our regulars here actually jumped in, knew all about this research too. So I did a little bit. I had research on this, and I did a little bit more on it this weekend. So this is about the very whenever you scientists are looking for something, and they come up with something unexpected that seems like something really unexpected. Those are some of the most interesting parts of science to me, because that's when you can have something that might break through a paradigm and really tell us something interesting about the way the universe works, a way about our bodies work, or something like that. Something that's really unexpected, that wasn't what they were looking for. I always enjoy those kind of scientific moments. Let me add this article here, and then don't worry, I won't go away long from the court. I promise you I will be back to the court feed in just a minute. So scientists build tiny biological robots from human cells. So what scientists were doing was first they would take cells from other animals, sometimes dead animals like frogs, and they found that the cells could still be made to be functional without any tinkering. They didn't have to go in and do any tinkering with their DNA, but they're just automatically, just by having these cells in a petri dish, and they found these are called, if they're from a non-human animal, it's called anthrobots. And these cells turned out to display unusual intelligence. They could work as a team. They could develop different functions, and nobody knows how these cells know this. And then also with human cells, they found the same thing. So they would use human tracheal cells, and they found that these would move across the surface, for instance, of nerve cells and repair them. So sometimes these cells were taken as part of surgery or taken from a cadaver before the body was dead. And before before the body was dead, I'm sorry, of course it was a cadaver. The body was dead, but before the cells were dead. And one of the local scientists on this from Tufts is Michael Levin. If you're interested in looking at this, you can find some interviews with him on YouTube that are actually really interesting. So in this current study published in Advanced Science, Levin, along with PhD student Gizem Gumaskaya, discovered that biobots can in fact be created from adult human cells without any genetic modification, and they are demonstrating some capabilities beyond what was observed with the xenobots. So the ones from human cells are called anthrobots, from anthropomorphic, or the same basis, human. And they found that they can take these cells and, for instance, put them in a maze, and they can work as a team and figure out how to get out of the maze. They demonstrate actual intelligence, which makes no sense. How could trachea cells have intelligence? And when you listen to the interviews there on TV that are more extensive, on YouTube that are more extensive here, they're even starting to find possibility that these cells have some memory from the host organism. So if it's a human, from the individual. So, because we all know it's been very well documented that in organ transplants, that there seems to be some kind of memory aspect that comes from the donor into the person receiving it, the recipient.
Unknown caller.
Oh, sorry. Looked like a spam call. So originally they were doing this research because this is why I say it was interesting. They weren't looking to find weird science. They were doing this research with these cells because they thought they could use cells to try to make, if you could refunction them, you could perhaps develop new tissue that can be used to transplant into the body. And if it's transplanted into the body that it's from, then you won't have rejection. Like when you get an organ transplant, one of the big things they have to fight is the immune system will try to destroy the new organ because they recognize it as alien, as not from that body. And so when you get an organ transplant, they give you powerful drugs to temporarily destroy your immune system so that your body will accept the new tissue. And so, but if you could make, scientists believe that, if you can make that tissue out of cells that come from your own body, then it won't be rejected. But you have to take those cells and repurpose them. And so that's what they were working on. And unexpectedly, they found that these cells demonstrated strange qualities. Where would that intelligence come from? It's really, really unusual. And some people are starting to speculate, some scientists are starting to speculate that could be even the basis for human consciousness, that each cell has a tiny, tiny piece of consciousness. And it's when you add it all together that you get what is human consciousness, our awareness of each other. I don't know. It's just, I find that stuff interesting, and I don't think it necessarily means what, you don't always have to jump to the conclusion that it means something woo about human consciousness. But there are some interesting, where does intelligence come from? Are there some things that material in the universe can tap into that helps direct it? There's theories on that. One is, I think, called morphic biology or something like that. And this is the idea that there are almost like platonic forms that are just somehow in the universe, however they've been established there, and that biological cells can, through some way, sense that and resonate with it. And for instance, that might tell a cell how to become a hand. So you have a cell within the body. You have cell division going back from when the body first forms as a zygote, and each cell has to become what it was supposed to be within that body. How does it know? Is there, scientists today still don't know. There's no map. How do cells that are exactly the same and they begin dividing, how do they know to become a heart cell, a brain cell, a hand? How does a cell know how to do that? And scientists have no idea. We know that in theory, the instructions come from the DNA, but how? Is there a map inside there? Scientists have no idea how. Lawrence Krauss and many others. Cox is fantastic. No Ego, Just Brilliant. That's Stephen Price giving us some different names on this. So I do find a lot of this stuff interesting. I don't know if you guys do too. Oh, I love watching Brian Greene. He has a series of, what would you call them, open seminars. God, I forget what it's called, but I watch them when it comes out, where he'll have on guests and they'll talk about particularly physics and the universe and stuff like that. Yeah, Brian Greene is a real gift. The World Science Festival, I think that's what it's called. He runs the World Science Festival, and I saw the most recent episode with it. And wow, he's aged a lot. He's really aged a lot in just a couple of years, because he was doing a lot of Zoom meetings during the pandemic that I watched, where he would have on a special guest, like a Nobel Prize winner. He's aged a lot just in the few years since the pandemic, and maybe we all have. String theory, yes. Brian has he's worked for many years in his career, as has about 60% of people in his field on string theory. Was that wasted? Because string theory has not really borne out. It's not really produced anything yet that's been testable in a lab. So string theory is really derived from mathematics, but it posits that there's what I think the latest thing is, like, there's 14 different dimensions or something like that, Maui, or 18 different dimensions. It's getting a lot of physicists are really down on string theory, almost to the point where they deride it and make fun of it. So, Francesca, you're talking about the observer effect, and this was first found from the light experiments with a slit of light, and where they found that light would act like a wave under certain circumstances and like a particle under other circumstances. And what would change it was actually whether they put a sensor up that observed it. And so if something was observing it, and they've proved this over the last century with all different kinds of experiments, if something is observing it, it takes on, I believe, a particle pattern. And it might have that in reverse. Somebody can correct me on that. But it's still to the heart of physics. It's one of the great mysteries. How could in fact, they've also found that even if you put the observer in the future, it can change how that particle behaves in the past. Now, of course, when they do it, it's microseconds in the past, but it's still very interesting. So again, I'm not a scientist. These are just topics that interest me, and I like to read articles on it and watch videos on it. And I'm basically, what I'm seeing here, you guys like it, or several of you guys like it too. So Maui actually is a big she is a believer of string theory. She says it will unlock the biggest mysteries of the universe, namely how gravity and quantum physics fit together. That's what that's what it's been trying to do for about 40 years. Is to there's a both gravity, the laws of gravity were very well established by Einstein. First by Newton, but then more in the 20th century with much more mathematical detail by Einstein with E equals mc squared. But then the quantum universe, and those are basically to study the world of the large, stars and galaxies. But whereas quantum is to study the world of the extremely small, quarks and light photons and stuff like that. And while both of these fields are dramatically proven scientifically, and they are the basis of what goes into our electronics, so they're not theoretical, they're proven. But yet they don't seem to fit together to each other. And so science has been spending really the last half century trying to come up with a unified theory that can make Einstein laws of gravity and work with quantum theories. Valeska only knows from watching The Big Bang Theory. Yeah, that's a great. I'm skeptical of string theory just because they don't seem to have found anything practical that can be tested in the lab over the last 40 years. But I'm not close to it, and it is interesting, and maybe it'll ultimately prove true. Stephen Price is mentioning continental drift, and so that's if we didn't have continental drift, would life have evolved? I think the answer is probably no. And not every planet has continental drift, but continental drift plays a large role in how evolutionary processes worked. So certainly life would be very different if we didn't have continental drift. I haven't studied it for a while, so I can't speak to the reasons why. Maybe someone else, maybe Steven knows. Right, Maui, today, that's the highest candidate for a theory of everything. She's talking about string theory. Yeah, there's nothing's replaced it necessarily. There are attempts, but it hasn't been proven in any way either. Stephen Price says, I find it so fascinating how we can be looking at a star and it was destroyed 5 million years ago. And we are just, so you're looking back at time. Exactly. And the universe, we know from evidence, is expanding. So every single moment as it's expanding, the light that's reaching us from the furthest that we can see, that part of that universe is slowly going, or not slowly, is going outside of our, forever outside of our view. We'll never be able to see it. So if there's a galaxy on the far, far, far edge of what we can see, pretty soon it'll go off the screen and we'll never be able to see it again because the universe is expanding. Science is basically solving mysteries. Yes. But to me, one of the interesting things is, like, as I went over with the cell behavior, there are still tremendous mysteries that remain. And there are areas where science doesn't really have the explanation. Very, very fundamental, essential areas too. And I think there will be, probably within our lives, but hopefully within our lives, revolutionary new conclusions on some of these things. And I think, whether any of that changes our lives, so the as quantum theory was developed in the 1920s, it eventually led to all the electronics that's in the back of our TV and our computers and stuff. So that had practical real world applications. So will some of the other stuff that gets found, maybe even in the field of consciousness research, or would some of those things have an actual real impact? So it's almost like if it doesn't have a real impact, it tends to be more towards philosophy, right, and speculation. Right. Francesca says, if the comet didn't destroy the dinosaurs, we wouldn't be here. That's right. Something else would be here. And Francesca says, never forget we live in a cosmic shooting gallery. Comets and asteroids have changed life on Earth many times. And also, what are those? Is it quasars? What are the ones, the astronomical event that produces extreme gamma rays? And if you're too close to it, will basically fry your planet. And they have impacted our evolution in the past, possibly even causing extinction events. What is that called? Maybe Maui knows. I can't remember what that's called. That type of a starburst. Running from the T-Rex. I can't run. I couldn't run from anything, even a small T-Rex, even a toy T-Rex. And of course, scientists now know that birds descended from the dinosaurs. And if you watch a small bird, the way it can move on top of a tree, just the way it's just fascinating. Birds are very intelligent, and their brains are wired very different from us. So it's amazing. So because they do go back hundreds of millions of years. Kitty has nightmares from Jurassic Park movies, but yet she still loves them. Yeah. Yeah, it would be, could there come a time where we might be able to bring back dinosaurs? Would we do that? There are still ongoing efforts to try to bring back woolly mammoths, which, not to be confused, dinosaurs go back hundreds of millions of years. The woolly mammoths go back to time of human history. I think they died off about 10,000 years ago. So still, that I think DNA is only good for about 10,000 years, and then it deteriorates. So it's a very difficult thing to bring back a woolly mammoth. Hardstar had a friend working at the 52nd floor of the World Trade Center. And I used to say to him all the time, please get me a job with you. I want to have that view. I hope he wasn't there that day. I do know someone that I went to college with, that was a friend, was in the World Trade Center for the first attack, but not for the second attack, fortunately. If DNA was frozen, yeah, I don't know. So the woolly mammoths, a lot of them were frozen way up in the tundra north. And so you can actually, hunters will still come across the remains of woolly mammoths where the tundra has warmed enough that they are unlocked from the ice, and they say you can supposedly still eat the meat. When I discuss these topics of science, is that of interest to any of you? And I guess if I would choose a topic, it would be something that, unlike today where I'm just talking off the cuff, maybe I would have to research it more so we could put it out there, and then hopefully try to get guests on that are experts. That's why I like working with Margaret and Jen. I can ask them questions. But is this something that interests you, or would you just rather find those type of topics on a more scientific channel? But these are topics that just have always interested me. I don't have any training in the science field. I have always just been interested in it. And this is what's great about YouTube, is you can find such great discussions now on all of these things and great interviews. Francesca likes science. Valeska prefers law-related personally. So we can try and do both, right? And we do both. Valeska would like to see a show on cancer research. So that would be good. It'd be great if I could get my oncologist in. He's the head of thoracic oncology at Mass General Hospital. I talked about it a little bit with him this week. And he is involved with research too. So, but I don't know. I don't know. He's very smart. Obviously, we haven't had discussions about. I'm sure he would be able to discuss the specific, my treatments, like, for instance, the ones that I've been through and how they work. Jennifer Fairgate. Is that another case in the UK, Heartstar? It sounds familiar, but I don't remember it. You can look it up. The only area I want to avoid as much as possible, even as I cover things like the news, is partisan politics, because it's really unfortunate. You have someone that maybe you've been just getting to know over a period of months, and you get along and you really like each other, and you both benefit from that new relationship. And I'm including people here in chat. And then they find out that that maybe you have a different political view than them, even slightly different. For some people, that can be enough where suddenly they don't want anything to do with you anymore. And I find that to be very unfortunate. When I was first when I was in college, I had great many discussions with people from all different types of political viewpoints, and I enjoyed that. And then in my time working in the bar industry, people would have, viewpoints that were very different than my own. And I never held that against them. I still enjoyed talking to them, but it's not always like that with a lot of people, Hi, Z Travel. She says, hello, Kevin, it's been a while. Well, welcome back. Jennifer Fairgate. Okay. Is the alias used? Oh, okay. I think you mentioned this one to me. Jennifer Fairgate is the alias used by an unidentified woman found dead in room 2805 of the Oslo Plaza Hotel on June 3rd of 1995. She has remained on it. Yeah, you mentioned this last week. She has remained unidentified for nearly 30 years. She was registered as Jennifer Fairgate, age 21, from Belgium, but they were all false details that she put down, and she had no ID on her, I believe. She also listed a companion of Lois Fairgate, who was never identified. And she was not asked for ID or a credit card. She spoke fluent English and German without an accent. Her behavior was quiet and controlled. She disappeared from her room for long stretches. Keycard shows that she was absent for 20 to 24 hours during her stay, with no sightings of her entering or leaving the room during that period. She had a couple of international calls to Belgium, neither connected. Her death, a gunshot was heard when security knocked. When they knocked, wow. Hotel security guard knocked on her door due to missing payment information. And then a gunshot sounded immediately. So she checked in, wasn't paying. And then when the hotel staff finally came for her, that's when she seems to have shot herself. That's what it looks like on the surface here. Police arrived nearly an hour later. The room was left unsupervised for 15 minutes, and police arrived about 50 minutes after the shots. A Browning 9mm pistol was in her hand. She had a gunshot wound to the head. Clothing labels had been removed, and she carried no ID or personal items that could really... I mean, this sounds like just a suicide to me from someone who was at the end of her rope, right? She had no money and went and checked into a hotel. This sounds to me like a suicide. But why the case has become a global mystery. Despite international checks, no match has ever been found for her fingerprints, DNA, or alias. So she basically was off the grid, it would seem. The combination of false identity, removed clothing labels, fluent multilingualism, lack of personal belongings, and military-style pistol have fueled theories of intelligence agency involvement. But she was only 21. That was young. That'd be young for an intelligence agent, right? Some investigators and journalists agree. The gun position was inconsistent with suicide. The recoil pattern didn't match, and the lack of blood spatter of her hands was suspicious. So we can look into that. My first reaction is that if she killed herself, or if the gunshot went off right as security was there to say, "Hey, look, you haven't paid. You have to pay for your room." that feels around the time that a suicide would take place if somebody checked into a room without money, doesn't it? So this description I have is from Wikipedia. All right. Oh, I forgot to go. There's nothing going on. And I'm going to go back to the court TV feed, but there is nothing going on there. So just to let you know, we didn't miss anything. That would have sucked if we did. But hopefully somebody in chat would have said, Kev, go back to the screen. So they're talking about another case with Paul Hicks, drowned his wife. But this, you see from the bottom left, this is still the live verdict watch. Okay, it's time for me to go grab something to eat. Thomas, it's too early for you to have ice cream. Heartstar says there were 2 gunshots. I'm only reading what was there. And Francesca says, I like Jury Watch because we entertain ourselves with interesting conversations while waiting. Nice to get to know everyone's various interests in different subjects. Yeah. And this is, we want to do more with the news too. I don't want to, it's hard to do it every day. Well, one of the reasons you can't do it every day, even if you made that commitment. So I did a couple of shows on it last week, is there isn't always sometimes there just isn't anything that compelling in the news that people would want to hear about. So this morning, there's a lot of stuff going on. But so, we want us, meaning me and Margaret and Jen, but as well as our great people in chat, to be a trusted source and a trusted place where you can go for information during something bigger that was when it's happening. So we're just trying to establish that now. But in order to make it in a way that's interesting to people on YouTube, to make it, there has to be interesting stories in the news. And sometimes there really isn't. Never too early for ice cream. Yeah, that's true. But I'm not going to have that for breakfast. All right, guys. So we will still be here. And Jen, I actually have still on the screen. So if something comes on, I don't even have to let her in the room. She can let herself in and just begin talking about whatever happens. But I'm not far away from the computer. So I'm going to eat and then jump in. And hopefully we'll get a verdict before the jury will go for lunch at 1. So hopefully we'll get a verdict before that. See you in a little while, guys. I am here. Just watching to see if the feed comes back, if there's anything on it. I'm here. I'm here. No, I've been watching. I had a little breakfast. Didn't want you guys to see me eating.
I believe, Pat, we know they're in the room at this point. All right, the jury should be in the room at this point right now. We do have a verdict. We're waiting to hear that.
So we do have a verdict. Keep in mind that we're probably about a minute behind on this court TV feed. I'll hit refresh to make sure.
We're going to try to figure out exactly when the jury is coming in, whether they're in right now or not. We don't know. Still waiting to get word from our producers in our ear. But here's what we know: the possible outcomes of this case, right? Okay, so the jury is not in the room, but the judge has just informed the courtroom that the verdict about the possible outcomes of this one is taking stock to them potentially coming.
My understanding is there's a verdict, but the jury is not in the room yet.
Or not guilty at all. Now, here's what we know. They deliberated for about 2 hours on Friday.
That's what they're reporting on Channel 13, MSNBC, NBC 10 in Boston.
Oh, you found me. You saw me.
Yep.
I was waving. I didn't think you saw me. Oh my God, they have a verdict. It's going to be guilty. It's going to be guilty. I mean, they were out quickly.
Good morning, Andy. Jury's coming momentarily. Brian. About the time we thought this morning, we were saying around 11.
Entering, all rise.
Here they come. Live on Channel 13. You can't have any
Jury,
hope.
jurors, and defendant, please remain
Right.
seated. Everyone else in the courtroom may be seated.
Your Honor, may I inquire?
You may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Brian Walsh, have the deliberating jurors reached a unanimous verdict?
We have.
Thank you, sir. If you could hand that to the court officer, please.
The court TV feed is actually caught up. It's only a couple of seconds behind.
Your Honor, may the verdict be recorded.
It may.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Brian Walsh, Norfolk Superior Court Criminal Indictment Number 2023-0091, As to count one, wherein the defendant Brian Walshe is charged with murder in the first degree, what say the jury? Is the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty of what, sir?
Murder in the first degree.
Murder in the first degree, so say you, Mr. Foreperson.
I do.
Guilty of murder in the first degree, so say all deliberating jurors.
I do.
Thank you. If you could hand that back to the court officer, please.
This time we move to poll the jurors.
The jury may be polled.
Thank you.
No reaction, no emotion.
Juror in seat
He knew
number
it was
one,
coming.
As to the verdict of murder in the first degree, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number two, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number three, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number four, as to the charge of murder in the first degree, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Mr. Foreperson, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 8, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 9, is that your verdict? Juror in seat number 10, is that your verdict? Juror in seat number 13,
Yes.
is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror in seat number 14, is that your verdict?
Yes.
And last juror, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Your Honor, all jurors answer affirmatively that the guilty of first degree is their verdict.
The verdict may be recorded. Please
Thank
be
you.
seated.
Seated.
So jurors, I want to thank you for your service on this case. I know that it went a little bit more quickly than we were expecting, but your service has been substantial. We're in the third week of this trial, and I appreciate all you did to be obedient to those rules that I placed on you and for your conscientious service as jurors in this case. I will be back to meet with you privately in a moment. You should feel a weight lifting off of you right now as I'm releasing of you of those requirements. You can talk to anyone about this case, or no one at all. You can do whatever research you wish to do about the case, or none at all. You go back on social media if you want, news media. And I'm supposed to release you from that burden of being open-minded. But I hope you always go through your lives with open hearts and open minds, new experiences, and new people. I'll be back in just a minute to meet with all of you privately. Thank you very much, jurors.
Jurors exiting, all rise. Jurors, follow me, please.
They used to say in those comic books, crime doesn't pay. Well, in this case, it didn't. He's going to jail.
For
Going
the
to
rest
prison.
of his life with no chance of getting out. Of
When
course,
are we
he'll
going to be in a
appeal.
position to have the victim impact statements and conduct the sentencing in this case?
Your Honor, I believe that we could do it as early as Wednesday of this week, but I believe if it's available to the court, we can also do Thursday or Friday.
I know that Friday's definitely not a good day for the court because I have other things scheduled. I anticipated the trial was going to be running, so I scheduled other things, although we could do it Friday morning. Does the defense have any preferences to the timing of the sentencing?
Your Honor, given the Commonwealth's recommendations, we'd actually request Wednesday at any point, if that's possible.
All right, I think it will be. I'll just, the only reason that I wouldn't do it on Wednesday is I do want the victim impact statements, regardless of the implications of the jury's verdict. It may have bearing on my sentencing on the other counts to which he pled guilty.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All rise.
Matter is continued to December 17th at 9 a.m. for sentence and position.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Court stands in recess.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sue.
Reaction, Margaret?
Well, I'm not surprised. Good justice for Anna. Anna, that's my reaction is put him in cuffs. He'll never see the light of day. He may try to appeal on statements made in the opening statement by his attorney that he was going to testify, but I don't think he'll win on that issue. And they always try to appeal, like ineffective assistance of counsel.
Even though he may have fully expected this verdict, still remarkable that he had absolutely no emotion in his face, no tension in his face. He might as well have been just being told this is your birthday. I mean, just nothing. No negative emotion at all in his face.
I think he waved the white flag when he decided not to testify. He must have been looking at the jurors and they must have had conviction in their eyes. And then he just said, you know what? I'm cooked. I'll accept it. And then he just, I don't know, turned numb. So I have no sympathy for that man. To cut up the mother of his wife, and now he's been convicted of murdering her. And geez, just think of how heinous that is.
Yeah, that's maybe that's some of the interest in the trial too. It's a baffling crime. It doesn't really make sense, but as most murders don't, and a lot, so his behavior after he was arrested to the way he behaves in court, very unusual.
Yeah, the big smile after arrest. Yeah. Well, I don't think he's going to last in jail. Well, he'll be sent to Cedar Junction. No doubt about that. The old Walpole. I can't see him lasting with some of the guys in there.
Jennifer's been on News Nation and she's joining us. Do you have a reaction, Jen?
They got it right. They got it right. It was the Google searches that used the word murder and that knife with the blood on it that he secured in his cabinet. To me, that's what got him.
Yeah, I agree.
How about you guys? I didn't get to hear your responses.
Justice at last for Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm so glad she allowed the tools to go in. I also think that really helped the case, them being able to see that and how, things were worn down to the nub and from what they did.
And they went through the law and they came up.
All right.
And I think also the fact that it was promised he would take the stand and then didn't, I just think that hurt. They wanted to hear from him, explain what happened, her rolling off the bed. Not that this would have changed the verdict, but it seemed like he just gave up.
Yeah, he did. I think he
had
nothing to lose. He could have taken the stand. He had nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose. This is the perfect example of take the stand. It's rare, but this is
rare.
You probably want to take the stand at this point.
Yeah, Kevin, what were you going to say?
Sorry, Kevin.
We all wondered if there'd be any deliberation debate in that jury room between murder 1 and murder 2, and I guess that maybe there was debate, but this settles it. They settled on murder 1. They had no problem with concluding that, even though we don't really know what happened in the moment of murder.
There was enough circumstantial evidence to put together, and this jury was smart, and they put it together, and they came up with the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was the right decision. I think so many of us were worried after Karen Reed. We were just, holding our breath. But look at how differently this trial was handled. The juxtaposition, which, by the way, this judge well pointed out. Her courtroom was organized. Her courtroom ran, for the most part, on time. She didn't allow any shenanigans. In fact, nobody even tried any shenanigans in there. The propaganda was left far away from this trial, as was Proctor. And I am just so glad to see justice here for Anna.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for being here with me as always. It was a pleasure. And, as always, I learn a lot from the both of you, and I do the best I can to come up with questions so that we can all continue to learn from your very relevant experience for people that are interested in true crime, or even just citizens who want to be good citizens. So part of that is understanding how the court system works. So again, thank you guys for being here.
Kevin, thank you for putting everything together, especially, you're fighting going into the hospital and seeing doctors and everything, and you just keep trucking. You are an inspiration to all of us, and I thank you for your friendship.
I second that.
Well, it's you guys and the people in chat that keep us going. That's what keeps us coming back and getting up early to do this every day.
Oh, yeah.
We see a lot of the same names, and unfortunately not faces. We don't get to see their faces, but their same names and the same intelligent comments. And it's great to be back with them when we have a case like this. So, I don't know if there's any trials on the horizon where there's cameras in the courtroom that we'll be covering, but we'll keep an open mind to it and see what comes up.
That sounds great. Everyone, I've got to head out for another appointment. So from one screen to the other. I'll see you guys
Thank
soon.
you very much,
Bye,
Jen.
Jen.
Thank you, Margaret. Margaret, it's just been a pleasure getting to know you even better, and let's keep collaborating.
Yes. Thank you, Jen.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Yeah, I've got that. I keep looking. I've got that eye appointment. Well, at least the verdict came in before my eye appointment.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be
You
all
must be-
dilated doing the verdict watch. But yeah, justice was served. And I think everybody seems satisfied with this verdict.
It shows the system works.
Yeah.
It was, the lawyers, as the judge pointed out when the defense closed, that how much both sides' attorneys were professional and respectful in their behavior all along. And she had said how she had been in courtrooms across the state, and that's generally been her experience, which just seemed to be her way of remarking that the last famous trial was not like that at all. So for people that have lost confidence in Massachusetts, well, the system can still work.
Yeah. And, I just want to add one more thing. I don't blame Judge Cannoni for that. It was the case was tried, not to get into the last case, but
The circus.
it was the
yeah.
media pressure and the circus, and it was a completely different arena that it was tried in. But I thought Judge Cannoni did a good job with what she had. It was,
Yeah.
she is a well-respected judge, as is Judge Ferner. So,
Right. I agree with that.
yeah.
I agree.
But it's been
All
a
right,
pleasure.
Margaret.
I really enjoy covering cases with you, both of you, and Jen's gone now. But I also like this chat. The chat's very smart and comes up with all sorts of questions and answers. So I love it. I love it.
So thank you, everybody from the other channels that joined us, Breaking the Case with Jen Coffin-Naffer, and It's a Crime with Margaret McLean, and Yellow Cottage Tales. So the three of us, we've joined forces, and we will, I'm sure, at some point do so again in the future. But and we will have plenty of projects together that we'll work on. We all talk on the side. So we'll figure out some way to keep you guys, keep this team together, because you guys are part of the team.
Yeah. And I think I talk to you. How often do we talk, Kevin? Like a couple times a day. So, with all sorts of ideas and thoughts on shows. So we have some brewing, and we'll be back at you pretty soon. Right, Kevin?
Absolutely. All right. Everybody enjoy the rest of the week.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Enjoy the cold.